Tyson stood frozen in the middle of our gourmet kitchen. The phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the marble floor, but he did not even flinch. His face, which was usually flushed with the arrogant glow of a man who thought he owned the world, had drained of all color. He looked gray. He looked like a corpse standing upright. But it was his eyes that terrified me the most. He was not looking at the floor where his phone lay. He was not looking at the door where the paramedics had just carried Jessica out. He was looking directly at me. It was not a look of concern. It was not the look of a husband who was worried that his pregnant wife had almost witnessed a tragedy. It was the look of a man seeing a ghost. His pupils were dilated, swallowing the iris, and his jaw hung slightly open. He was looking at my chest, watching it rise and fall with my breath, as if my very existence was an offense to him. The silence in the kitchen was heavy and suffocating, broken only by the hum of the sub-zero refrigerator. "Why did you not drink it?" The words left his mouth before he could stop them. They were a whisper, dry and raspy, but in the quiet kitchen they sounded like a gunshot. I felt a cold chill settle deep in my bones. I placed a hand on my stomach, my protective instinct kicking in instantly. A loving husband would have asked if I was okay. A concerned employer would have asked if Jessica was going to survive. But Tyson asked the only question that mattered to his plan. I stared at him, keeping my face completely neutral. I decided to play the role of the confused, innocent wife for just a moment longer. I wanted to see how far he would dig his own grave. "What do you mean, baby?" I asked, stepping closer to him. He flinched as if I had burned him. "I gave it to Jessica because I felt sick. You said it was full of vitamins. I thought it would help her energy." "Why are you looking at me like that?" Tyson blinked rapidly, the reality of the situation crashing down on him. He ran a hand through his perfect hair, messing it up for the first time in years. He started pacing around the kitchen island, his breathing coming in short, panicked gasps. "Nothing," he stammered, his voice cracking. You need your nutrients, Brianna. You are pregnant. You should not be giving away your food. It is irresponsible." He was gaslighting me. Even now, with his assistant dying in an ambulance, he was trying to turn this around and make it my fault. But his hands were shaking so badly, he had to grip the edge of the counter to steady himself. That was the moment the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The sudden kindness, the insistence on the smoothie, the weird smell, the panic. He did not want me healthy. He wanted me dead. "We have to go to the hospital." I said, my voice firm. I grabbed my purse. Tyson looked up startled. "Why?" "You are fine," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Because Jessica is your assistant, Tyson," I replied, staring him down. "And she just collapsed in our driveway after drinking a smoothie you made. If she dies, the police will want to talk to us. We need to be there." The mention of the police seemed to snap him out of his trance. Panic was replaced by a frantic, calculating energy. Yes, you are right," he muttered. He grabbed his car keys, fumbling with them twice before he could pick them up. "We need to see what the doctors say. We need to control the narrative." He muttered that last part under his breath, but I heard it. The drive to Northside Hospital was a blur of reckless lane changes and terrifying speed. Tyson drove his G-Wagon like he was running from the devil. He did not speak a word to me the entire ride. He kept glancing at his Apple Watch, his thumbs flying across the screen at red lights. I sat in the passenger seat, gripping the door handle, watching him unravel. I was not scared of his driving. I was scared of the man sitting next to me. I was sitting next to a stranger who had shared my bed for 5 years. When we arrived at the emergency room, the chaos was immediate. Nurses were rushing back and forth, and the intercom was blaring codes I did not understand. Tyson marched to the reception desk demanding answers with the entitlement of a man who has never been told no. "I need to see Jessica Miles," he barked at the terrified receptionist. "I am her employer." "Sir, you cannot go back there," she said. "She is in critical condition. The doctors are stabilizing her." Tyson turned away, running his hands over his face. He looked like he was about to vomit. We sat in the waiting room for what felt like an eternity. Every time the double doors swung open, Tyson jumped. He was not praying for her survival. I could see it in the way he chewed his fingernails, a nasty habit he had quit years ago. He was praying for her silence. I sat perfectly still, my hand resting on my baby bump. I was already calculating my next move. I needed my phone. I needed to call Howard Jameson, the only lawyer in Atlanta who scared Tyson. But I had to wait. I had to be sure. Finally, a doctor in blue scrubs pushed through the doors. He looked exhausted. He scanned the room and locked eyes with us. Tyson leaped to his feet. "Doctor, how is she?" Tyson asked. His voice was trembling. Was it an allergy?" The doctor did not answer immediately. He walked over to us, his expression grim and professional. He looked from Tyson to me and then back to Tyson. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter," the doctor said, his voice low. "Ms. Miles is in a coma. We have managed to stabilize her vitals for now, but her condition is critical." "What caused it?" I asked. My voice was steady, cutting through Tyson's panic. The doctor took a deep breath. He held a clipboard tight against his chest. We ran a toxicology screen immediately given the severity of the seizures. It was not an allergy, and it was not food poisoning. He paused, letting the weight of his next words hang in the air. "Ms. Miles has ingested a lethal dose of arsenic." The word hit the room like a bomb. Arsenic. Tyson made a sound like a wounded animal. His knees buckled and he collapsed back into the hard plastic chair. He covered his mouth with his hand, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an exit. "Arsenic," the doctor repeated, watching Tyson's reaction closely. "A very high concentration, usually found in rat poison or industrial pesticides. If she had finished whatever she drank, she would be dead right now. We have contacted the police. They are on their way to take statements." I looked down at my husband. The man who had prepared my breakfast with a smile. The man who had sworn to protect me and our unborn child. He was not looking at the doctor. He was staring at the floor, shaking uncontrollably. I looked up at the doctor and let a single tear roll down my cheek. It was the only fake thing I had done all day. "Thank you, doctor," I said softly. "My husband is just in shock. He made her a smoothie this morning. He feels responsible." Tyson's head snapped up, his eyes wide with horror as he realized I had just served him up on a silver platter. The doctor's eyes narrowed as he looked at Tyson. The suspicion was instant. I sat back feeling a cold, dark satisfaction spreading through my chest. The game was on, and Tyson had no idea he was playing against a grandmaster. Two uniformed officers walked into the sterile waiting room, and the air immediately shifted. I sat up straighter, expecting Tyson to crumble further or perhaps to ask for a lawyer. But instead, I watched a transformation that made my blood run cold. Tyson stood up and wiped his face. He adjusted his collar. The shaking stopped. The terror in his eyes was replaced by a look of profound, devastating sorrow. He was no longer the panicked husband. He was the grieving victim. "Officers, thank God you are here," Tyson said, his voice breaking perfectly. "I do not know what happened. It all happened so fast." I stood up slowly, placing a protective hand on my belly. "Officer, this is a misunderstanding," I started to say. But Tyson cut me off. He turned to the police, his eyes wide and pleading. "She has been so stressed lately, officers. My wife. She is pregnant and the hormones have been making her paranoid. I told her Jessica was just my assistant. I told her there was nothing going on. But she would not listen." I froze. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. "What are you talking about, Tyson?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Tyson turned to look at me, and for a second I saw a flicker of triumph behind his tears. Then he looked back at the officers. "I made a smoothie for myself this morning, just a protein shake. But Brianna insisted on adding something to it. She said she had a special powder that would help with my energy. I did not think anything of it. But then Jessica came over to drop off some files. Brianna got so angry. She started screaming that Jessica was trying to steal me. She forced the drink into Jessica's hand. She said if Jessica wanted my life so bad she could have my breakfast too. Liar, I screamed. The word ripped out of my throat before I could stop it. That is a lie. You made that drink for me. You tried to make me drink it. The officers took a step toward me, their hands hovering near their belts. "Ma'am, please calm down," the taller officer said, his voice hard. "Let him finish." Tyson covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking with fake sobs. I tried to stop her. I swear I did. But Jessica drank it so fast, and then she fell. Oh, God, she just fell. I stared at the man I had married. This was not just a lie. This was a rehearsed performance. He had planned this. If I had drunk the smoothie and died, it would have been an accident or a suicide. But since Jessica drank it and survived, he had to pivot. He was framing me for attempted murder. Before I could defend myself, the double doors to the waiting room burst open. The sound of high heels clicking aggressively against the linoleum floor echoed through the hallway. It was Ashley Tyson's sister-in-law. She was wearing a tennis outfit and holding an oversized designer bag, looking like she had just come from the country club. "Where is he? Where is my brother?" she shouted, her voice shrill and commanding. She spotted Tyson and rushed over, wrapping her arms around him, glaring at me over his shoulder. Her blue eyes were cold and filled with a hatred she usually tried to hide behind polite smiles at Thanksgiving. "I knew it," she hissed loud enough for the officers and the nurses to hear. "I knew you would do something like this eventually. You are sick." "Ashley, shut up," I said, my hands trembling. "You do not know what is happening." "Oh, I know exactly what is happening," she snapped, letting go of Tyson and stepping toward me. She used her height and her privilege like a weapon, forcing me to take a step back. "I told Tyson not to marry you. I told him you were unstable. You have been obsessed with his money and his status since day one. And now that he is finally successful, you cannot handle a little competition, can you?" She turned to the officers, pointing a manicured finger at my face. "Officer, you have to arrest her. She has been threatening his assistant for months. She is pathologically jealous. Just last week, she told me she would kill anyone who tried to take Tyson away from her." My jaw dropped. That conversation never happened. Ashley was lying with an ease that was terrifying. She and Tyson were working together. It was a coordinated attack. "That is not true," I said, looking at the officers. "Please, you have to check the glass. Check the fingerprints. He made the drink." The officer looked at me and then back at the weeping Tyson and the indignant Ashley. I saw the bias settle in his eyes. He saw a successful businessman and his respectable sister-in-law. And then he saw me, an angry black woman screaming in a hospital waiting room. "Ma'am, we are going to need you to come down to the station to answer some questions," the officer said, reaching for his handcuffs. "I am not going anywhere with you," I said, backing away. "My husband just tried to poison me." Tyson looked up, his face a mask of tragedy. "Honey, please stop making this worse. We can get you help. I know you did not mean to hurt her. You are just not yourself right now." He was doing it again. He was painting me as the crazy, hormonal wife. If I screamed, they would say I was resisting. If I fought, they would say I was violent. I took a deep breath, forcing my heart rate to slow down. I needed to think. I needed to see the board. Why? Why would he do this? It was not just about Jessica. Tyson cheated on me all the time. He never cared enough to kill me before. What changed? Then I remembered the notification I had seen on his phone 3 days ago, the one he quickly swiped away. It was an email from a life insurance company, a policy review. And then I thought about Apex Solutions, the company I had built from the ground up. The company where I was the silent owner and he was the public face. We were about to close a massive deal with a venture capital firm, a deal worth $200 million. If I divorced him, he would get nothing because of the ironclad prenup my father had forced us to sign. But if I died while we were married, he would inherit everything. My shares, my trust fund, the insurance payout. And if I went to prison for murder, he would get power of attorney over my assets while I was incarcerated. He would claim I was mentally unfit to run the company. He would sell Apex Solutions, take the money, and run off with Ashley and Jessica. The realization hit me harder than the shock of the poison. This was not a crime of passion. It was a corporate takeover. My husband was not just a cheater. He was a thief who was willing to kill his pregnant wife for a payday. I looked at Tyson. He was still hugging Ashley, pretending to cry into her shoulder, but I saw his hand patting her back in a rhythmic, calming motion. He was not sad. He was waiting. "Okay," I said, my voice ice cold. The officer paused, surprised by my sudden calm. "I will come with you, officer. I have nothing to hide." I held my hands out. I did not scream. I did not cry. I looked straight at Tyson. He lifted his head, and for a fleeting second, our eyes locked. He expected to see fear. He expected to see a broken woman. Instead, he saw a CEO. I lowered my hands to my stomach, protecting the only innocent life in this room. As the officer guided me toward the exit, I passed by Ashley. She smirked at me, a cruel, twisted smile that said, "I won." "Make sure you keep the house clean, Ashley," I whispered as I walked past her. "You are going to need somewhere to stay when I take everything you own." Her smile faltered. I walked out into the bright sunlight of the ambulance bay, feeling the handcuffs click against my wrists. They thought they had trapped me. They thought this was the end of the story. But they had forgotten one thing. They had just handed me the weapon I needed to destroy them. They made it a matter of public record, and now I was going to use the law to burn their world to the ground. The air inside the precinct smelled like stale coffee and bad decisions. I sat on a metal bench near the front desk, watching a drunk man argue with a desk sergeant about his missing shoe. My wrists were free now, but the sensation of the handcuffs still lingered like a phantom burn. I was not under arrest. Not yet. I was a person of interest, a witness, a wife who had allegedly snapped. "Officer, I need to use the restroom," I said to the female officer guarding me. She looked me up and down. Her eyes lingered on my designer maternity dress, which was now wrinkled and stained with sweat. She probably saw a spoiled princess who had thrown a tantrum. She did not see a woman fighting for her life. "Make it quick," the officer said, pointing down a hallway with flickering fluorescent lights. "The interrogation starts in 10 minutes. I walked down the hallway, my heels clicking on the linoleum. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. I pushed open the heavy door to the ladies' room and locked it behind me. It was empty. Thank God. I rushed to the furthest stall, locked it, and pulled my phone out of my bra. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it into the toilet. I had 3% battery left, just enough for one call. I did not call my mother. I did not call my best friend. I dialed a number I had memorized 5 years ago. The number of a man who cost $1,000 an hour and was worth every penny. Howard Jameson picked up on the first ring. "Brianna," he said. His voice was deep, gravelly, and reassuring. "Why am I seeing your husband's name on a police scanner report regarding a poisoning?" "He tried to kill me, Howard," I whispered, pressing the phone tight against my ear. "He put arsenic in my smoothie, but Jessica drank it. Now he is framing me." He told the police I am having a mental breakdown. I heard the sound of a chair scraping against the floor on the other end of the line. Howard was moving. "Listen to me very carefully," Brianna Howard said. "Do not say a word to the police. Do not sign anything. I am on my way. I will have you out of there in an hour." "I know the drill, Howard," I said, leaning my forehead against the cool metal of the stall door. "But I need you to do something first. I need access to the rainy day fund, the offshore account. If Tyson is playing this game, he is going to go for my wallet. I need to move the liquid cash into the trust before he can touch it." There was a silence on the other end of the line, a long, heavy silence that made my stomach drop. "Howard." I heard the rapid clicking of a keyboard, then a sigh, a heavy, defeated sigh that I had never heard from Howard Jameson in my life. "Brianna." "Look at your phone," Howard said softly. "Try to log into your main banking app. Why, Howard, just move the money. Just do it, Brianna." I pulled the phone away from my ear and opened my banking app. Face ID recognized me, the little wheel spun, and then a red box popped up on the screen. Account suspended. Contact administrator. Reason code 51150. Medical incapacitation. I stared at the screen. My breath hitched in my throat. I switched to my credit card app. Suspended. I tried my investment portfolio. Locked. "What is happening?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "He was faster than us," Brianna Howard said grimly. "Tyson filed an emergency motion 20 minutes ago. He presented a sworn affidavit from a doctor claiming you are a danger to yourself and others due to severe prenatal psychosis. He triggered the incapacitation clause in your trust." My knees gave out. I slid down the stall wall until I hit the dirty tile floor. The incapacitation clause. It was a safety measure my father had put in place to protect the family fortune in case I ever got dementia or went into a coma. It gave my spouse temporary power of attorney over all my assets to pay for my medical care. I never thought the spouse would be the one putting me in the coma. He froze everything Howard asked, Everything Howard confirmed. Your personal accounts, the joint accounts, even the access codes to the Apex Solutions servers. He has temporary control of the company Brianna. He is listed as your guardian. I felt a scream building in my chest, but I swallowed it down. It tasted like bile and betrayal. He cannot do this, I hissed. I am not crazy. I am sitting here talking to you. It does not matter what is true, Howard said, his voice hard. It matters what a judge signed, and Tyson found a judge on a Sunday morning. He has been planning this for months, Brianna. This was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. The paperwork is too perfect. I closed my eyes. I saw Tyson's face in the kitchen. The fake concern, the shaking hands. He knew. He knew that if I drank that smoothie, I would either die or end up in the hospital. Either way, he wins. If I die, he inherits. If I survive but end up committed to a psych ward, he controls the money. And now that Jessica drank it, he is pivoting. He is using her poisoning as proof of my insanity. Brianna, are you still there? I am here, I said, wiping a tear from my cheek. I am going to file a counter motion, Howard said, but the courts are closed until tomorrow. And without access to your funds, I cannot pay the bail bondsman if they decide to book you tonight. So I am stuck, I said. You are vulnerable, Howard corrected. Listen to me. Do not let them see you break. If you cry, they will say you are unstable. If you yell, they will say you are violent. You have to be ice. Do you understand me? Be ice. My battery icon turned red. 1%. I understand, Howard. Get here fast. I hung up the phone just as it died. The screen went black, reflecting my own face back at me. I looked exhausted. My hair was a mess. My eyes were puffy. I looked exactly like the crazy woman Tyson wanted the world to see. I stood up and smoothed down my dress. I walked to the sink and splashed cold water on my face. I scrubbed my cheeks until they were red. I took a paper towel and dried my skin. Tyson thought he had won. He had the money. He had the house. He had the narrative. He thought he had taken away my power because he took away my credit cards. He forgot where I came from. I did not grow up in the mansion on the hill. I grew up in a one-bedroom apartment in East Point where we had to heat water on the stove to take a bath. I knew how to survive with nothing. I knew how to fight when my back was against the wall. I looked at myself in the mirror one last time. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard rage. You want crazy, Tyson? I whispered to the empty bathroom. I will show you crazy. I unlocked the door and stepped back out into the hallway. The officer was waiting for me, tapping her foot impatiently. Ready? She asked. I lifted my chin. I placed my hand on my stomach, feeling the tiny flutter of my daughter's kick. I am ready, I said. I walked toward the interrogation room, not as a victim, but as a soldier marching into war. I did not have $1 to my name, but I had the truth. And I had a secret that Tyson had forgotten about, a secret buried deep in the source code of Apex Solutions. A kill switch that only I could activate. He wanted to run my company. Good luck running a company that just ceased to exist. I sat down in the metal chair across from the detective, and for the first time that day, I smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a woman who was about to burn the whole world down just to stay warm. I walked out of the police precinct into the humid Atlanta afternoon air, and the first thing I noticed was how bright the sun was. It felt offensive. Inside the interrogation room, time had stopped. The walls were gray, the table was metal, and the air was recycled. But out here, the world was continuing to spin as if my life had not just imploded. Howard Jameson. My lawyer walked beside me, his Italian leather shoes clicking rhythmically on the concrete. He looked immaculate in his navy suit, a stark contrast to my wrinkled dress and exhausted face. You are lucky, Brianna, he said, his voice low and serious. The police found nothing in the blender. Guillaume. It was spotless. Not a trace of arsenic, not a trace of kale. It was the cleanest kitchen appliance in the state of Georgia. I stopped walking and felt a fresh wave of nausea that had nothing to do with my pregnancy. Tyson. He had washed it. While I was screaming for help, while the paramedics were loading his dying assistant onto a stretcher, my husband was standing at the sink scrubbing away the evidence. He did not go to the hospital because he was worried about Jessica. He went to the hospital because he was done cleaning the crime scene. He is thorough, I said quietly. I will give him that. Howard opened the door of a waiting black SUV for me. Go home, Brianna. Do not speak to him. Do not engage. Pack a bag and go to a hotel. I will handle the bail paperwork and the arraignment schedule. We bought some time because the DA does not have a smoking gun yet. But Tyson is going to come at you hard. I nodded and climbed into the car. I did not have the heart to tell Howard that I could not pay for a hotel because my accounts were frozen. I just wanted to go home. I wanted to crawl into my bed, the bed I had paid for, and sleep for a week. The drive to Buckhead was agonizing. I watched the city roll by through the tinted window. The skyscrapers of Midtown where I had built my empire seemed to mock me. I was the silent genius behind the code. I was the one who stayed up for 3 nights in a row to fix the server bugs while Tyson was out golfing. And now I was the one being treated like a criminal while he played the grieving hero. When the car turned onto our street, my stomach dropped. There was a white van parked in my driveway. A man in blue coveralls was kneeling at my front door, a power drill in his hand. The shrill sound of metal grinding against metal echoed through the quiet neighborhood. And standing over him, supervising the work like she was the foreman of a construction site, was Ashley. She was sipping a latte, holding it with 2 hands, looking relaxed and smug. When she saw the black car pull up, she did not look surprised. She looked delighted. I stepped out of the car, my legs feeling heavy. The humidity hit me instantly, making my dress stick to my back. "What is going on, Ashley?" I asked, walking up the driveway. My voice was hoarse from the interrogation. Ashley took a slow sip of her drink, her eyes scanning me from head to toe with open disgust. She smirked. "Well, look who is out on bail. I thought they kept attempted murderers locked up for at least 24 hours. I guess the justice system really is broken." "Get away from my door," I said, stepping past her. "Who is this? Why is he drilling my lock?" Ashley stepped in front of me, blocking my path. She was shorter than me, but today she felt 10 feet tall. "He is changing the locks, Brianna, obviously. Tyson does not feel safe with you having a key. You tried to poison his assistant. Who knows what you would do to him while he slept?" I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Tyson is afraid of me. That is rich. Tell the locksmith to leave, Ashley. This is my house." Ashley laughed too. A high-pitched, cruel sound that grated on my nerves. "Your house? Oh, honey, you really are delusional, aren't you?" She reached into her oversized tote bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She waved it in my face. "This is the property deed, Brianna. Read the name on the title. Tyson Carter, purchased in August 2018, 3 months before you two got married." She took a step closer, invading my personal space. Her perfume was overpowering, a floral scent that smelled expensive and cheap at the same time. "This is a premarital asset, Brianna. In the eyes of the law, you are just a guest. And as of this morning, your invitation has been revoked. Tyson wants you out. Now." I stared at the paper in her hand. I did not need to read it. I knew exactly what it said. I remembered the day we bought this house. I remembered Tyson sitting at the closing table sweating through his dress shirt because the bank had denied his loan application twice. His credit score was in the 600s because of his failed crypto investments. He was humiliated. He was about to lose his dream house, the symbol of success he needed to show off to his friends. I remembered taking his hand under the table and squeezing it. I remembered wiring $200,000 from my private savings account money I had made from my first software patent directly to the escrow agent. I remembered telling Tyson to put his name on the deed. I told him it did not matter. I told him I wanted him to feel like the man of the house. I wanted to boost his fragile ego. I wanted him to feel proud. I had paid the down payment. I had paid the monthly mortgage for 5 years. I had paid for the renovations, the landscaping, and the nursery that was waiting upstairs for our daughter. But on paper, Ashley was right. It was his house. I looked at Ashley. I looked at the locksmith who was awkwardly pretending not to listen while he installed a shiny new deadbolt. "I paid for this house, Ashley," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "I paid the down payment." Tyson did not have a dime to his name. Ashley rolled her eyes. "Sure you did, just like you invented Apex Solutions, right? You know Tyson told me about your little fantasies. He told me how you lie to make yourself feel important. It is sad, really. He is the genius. You are just the admin who got lucky enough to marry him. She snapped her fingers at the locksmith. "Are you done yet? She needs to get her things off the porch before the neighbors call the HOA." The locksmith nodded and stood up, handing Ashley a set of shiny new keys. She jingled them in front of my face like she was teasing a dog. "Here is the deal, Brianna. Tyson packed a bag for you. It is right there." She pointed to a single black trash bag sitting near the garage door. It looked like garbage. "He put some clothes and your toiletries in there. Anything else you want, you will have to request through his lawyer. Now get off the property. If you are still here in 5 minutes, I am calling the police and reporting you for trespassing. And since you are already out on bail, I doubt you want another charge today." I looked at the trash bag. Then I looked at the house, my sanctuary, the place where I had planned to raise my child. I felt a sharp kick in my ribs. My daughter was awake. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of freshly cut grass and betrayal. I could fight her right here. I could scream. I could break a window. I could tell her that the $200,000 I wired was easily traceable and that a forensic accountant would tear their little deed to shreds in court. But not today. Not on the driveway with the neighbors watching from behind their curtains. Tyson wanted a reaction. He wanted me to explode so he could have more footage for his victim narrative. He wanted the angry black woman screaming on the front lawn. I was not going to give him the satisfaction. I walked over to the trash bag and picked it up. It was light. He probably hadn't even packed my vitamins. I turned back to Ashley. She was smiling that triumphant smile again, thinking she had won the war just because she won a battle. "You can keep the keys, Ashley," I said, keeping my voice deadly calm. "You can keep the house. You can even keep the brother. But you tell Tyson something for me." Ashley raised an eyebrow, mocking me. "What? That you are sorry?" "No," I said. "Tell him he should have checked the server logs before he changed the locks. A house is just wood and brick, Ashley. But a company is code. And he just locked the only person who knows the password out of the building." I turned around and walked down the driveway. I did not look back. I did not call an Uber. I walked down the street carrying a trash bag, looking like a homeless woman in a ruined designer dress. Let them have the house. Let them sleep in my bed. I had bigger plans. And as I walked toward the main road, feeling the heat of the pavement through my thin soles, I knew exactly where I was going. I was going to the one place Tyson would never look for me, and I was going to retrieve the one thing that could destroy him faster than arsenic ever could. I sat in the corner of a coffee shop 3 blocks from my own house, clutching a lukewarm cup of herbal tea. My black trash bag sat on the floor next to me, looking like a pile of dirty laundry. I was the woman who had coded the security protocols for 3 major banks in the Southeast, yet here I was, homeless and cut off from my own fortune. The bell above the door chimed. I did not look up. I knew who it was. I could feel his presence like a drop in temperature. Tyson walked in wearing a fresh polo shirt and khakis, looking every inch the concerned suburban husband. But he was not alone. Walking a step behind him was a man I had never seen before. He was short, balding, and wearing a suit that was one size too big. He carried a battered briefcase and wiped sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief that looked gray. This was not a high-powered attorney. This was a strip mall lawyer, the kind who advertised on bus benches next to bail bondsmen. Tyson was scraping the bottom of the barrel because he could not afford anyone else. Without my money, he was nothing. They spotted me and walked over. Tyson pulled out a chair and sat down opposite me. He looked at the trash bag and then at my face. He put on his sad eyes again. The performance never ended with him. "Brianna, honey," he said, his voice soft and dripping with fake sympathy. "I am so glad I found you. You cannot just wander off like that. It is not safe, not in your condition." I took a sip of my tea. I did not offer him a seat. "Who is this Tyson?" I asked, nodding at the sweating man. "This is Mr. Henderson," Tyson said, gesturing for the man to sit. "He is a family friend. He is here to help us. To help you." Mr. Henderson sat down nervously, placing his briefcase on the table. He avoided making eye contact with me. He smelled of stale cigarette smoke and desperation. "Mrs. Carter," he mumbled, fumbling with the latches of his case. "It is a difficult situation, truly difficult, but we want to ensure that you and the baby are protected during this mental health crisis." I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound that made Mr. Henderson flinch. "Crisis," I repeated. You mean the crisis where my husband poisoned his assistant and blamed it on me? Is that the crisis we are discussing? Tyson sighed, shaking his head like a disappointed parent. See, Mr. Henderson, this is what I was talking about. The paranoia, the delusions. She believes I am the enemy. It is the psychosis. He reached across the table and tried to take my hand. I pulled back as if he were radioactive. Brianna, look at me, Tyson said, his voice hardening slightly. You are sick. You tried to kill Jessica. The police know it. The doctors know it. Ashley knows it. You are spiraling. If I do not step in, the state will take you away. They will put you in a facility where you cannot hurt anyone. And they will take the baby the second she is born. My hand instinctively went to my stomach. He knew exactly where to strike. He was weaponizing my motherhood against me. But Tyson continued leaning in closer, his eyes narrowing. There is another way. A way where you stay out of prison. A way where you get the medical help you need in a private luxury facility, not a jail cell. Mr. Henderson slid a thick document across the table. It was stapled at the top and the paper felt heavy. What is this? I asked, staring at the bold letters at the top of the page. It is a voluntary conservatorship. Mr. Henderson explained, his voice trembling slightly. It grants Mr. Carter temporary legal guardianship over your person and your estate. Given your fragile mental state, it allows him to manage your finances, your medical decisions, and your business interests until you are well again. I looked at the document. I flipped through the pages. It was thorough. It gave Tyson the power to sell my property. It gave him the power to access my trust. It gave him the power to commit me to a psychiatric ward if he deemed it necessary. But then my eyes stopped on page 12. Clause 4, Section B. The guardian shall have full proxy voting rights for all shareholder interests in Apex Solutions, including but not limited to the liquidation of assets and transfer of intellectual property. I looked up at Tyson. His face was perfectly still, but his leg was bouncing under the table. A nervous tic he had whenever he was bluffing. This isn't about my mental health, I said, my voice quiet and dangerous. This is about Apex. You want the voting rights. Tyson shrugged. Someone has to run the company while you are getting better, Brianna. The investors are spooked. The stock is dropping because of your scandal. I need the authority to stabilize the ship. I need to be able to sign checks and make deals without waiting for you to sign off from a hospital bed. Stabilize the ship, I scoffed. You mean sell it. You want to trigger the buyout clause with the venture capital firm. You want to sell my code, my company, and run off with the cash. Tyson slammed his hand on the table. The tea in my cup rippled. I am trying to save you, he hissed, abandoning the nice guy act. You are looking at 20 years in prison for attempted murder, Brianna. Jessica is in a coma. If she dies, it is a murder charge. Do you understand that? Murder. I looked at him, really looked at him, and suddenly I saw something I had missed before. He was sweating, not just from the heat, but from fear. He was terrified. Why was he pushing this document now, on a Sunday afternoon? Why bring a cheap lawyer to a coffee shop instead of waiting for Monday morning? If he was so sure I was going to prison, he could just wait. The state would eventually give him control if I was incarcerated. Why the rush? Why the desperate need for me to sign voluntarily right this second? And then it hit me. Jessica. He said she was in a coma. The doctor said she was critical. If Jessica died, Tyson was safe. He could pin it on me and play the widower. But if Jessica woke up, if she woke up and remembered who gave her the smoothie, if she remembered that Tyson forced it on her, if she remembered the smell of almonds, Tyson needed this document signed before she woke up. He needed control of my money and my company immediately so he could liquidate everything and disappear before the truth came out. He was not trying to protect my estate. He was trying to rob the bank before the security guards arrived. Jessica isn't dead, I said softly, watching his reaction. Tyson blinked. Not yet. But the doctors say, she isn't dead, I repeated louder. And that is what you are afraid of, isn't it? You are afraid she is going to open her eyes and tell the police that you are the one who poisoned her. Tyson's face went pale. Shut up, Brianna. You don't know what you are talking about. I leaned forward, staring deep into his eyes. You need this money to run. You need the Apex sale to go through so you have cash to flee the country when she wakes up. That is why you brought this ambulance chaser here on a Sunday. You are on a clock, Tyson." Mr. Henderson looked between us, his eyes wide. "Mr. Carter, perhaps we should. Sign the papers," Brianna Tyson growled, ignoring his lawyer. "Sign them, or I swear to God I will have Ashley testify that you have been planning this for months. I will have them lock you up in a state ward where they sedate you so heavily you won't remember your own name. I will raise our daughter to hate you. I will tell her you were a monster." The threat hung in the air, heavy and toxic. He was showing me his true face now. There was no love left, only greed and survival instinct. I picked up the pen. Tyson's eyes lit up. He thought he had won. He thought the threat of losing our daughter was enough to break me. I held the pen over the signature line. I watched him hold his breath. Then I flipped the document over and wrote 2 words in big, bold letters on the back page. "Go to hell." I stood up and ripped the paper in half. Then I ripped it again. I threw the confetti pieces in his face. "I am not signing anything, Tyson." I said, my voice loud enough for the barista to hear, "and I am not going to prison. Because unlike you, I did not do anything wrong." Tyson jumped up, knocking his chair over. "You stupid bitch," he shouted. "You are making the biggest mistake of your life." I grabbed my trash bag. "No, Tyson. The mistake was thinking you could outsmart the woman who built the algorithm that tracks your every financial move. You want to play legal games? Fine. But you better hope Jessica stays asleep, because the moment she wakes up, your life is over." I turned to leave, but Tyson grabbed my arm. His grip was painful. "She won't wake up," he whispered in my ear. His voice was cold, dead, and certain. I froze. A chill went down my spine. It was not a prediction. It was a promise. He was going to make sure she didn't wake up. I yanked my arm free and backed away. "Get away from me," I yelled. I ran out of the coffee shop, my heart pounding in my throat. I had to get to the hospital. I had to get to Jessica. Tyson was not just a thief. He was not just a liar. He was going to finish the job. I dialed Howard's number as I ran down the street. "Howard," I screamed into the phone. "Send security to Northside Hospital. Send everyone you have. Tyson is going to kill her. He is going to kill the only witness we have." I flagged down a taxi, ignoring the fact that I had no cash. I would give the driver my diamond earrings if I had to. "Drive," I told the driver, slamming the door. "Northside Hospital. And don't stop for red lights." I looked out the back window. Tyson was standing on the sidewalk watching me go. He was not chasing me. He was pulling out his phone. He was making a call. I realized with terrifying clarity that the race was not for the money anymore. It was a race for a life, and I was the only thing standing between a comatose woman and a man who had nothing left to lose. I realized running away was a mistake. I was reacting out of fear, and Tyson could smell fear like a shark smells blood. If I kept running, he would just hunt me down with his lawyers and his lies. I needed to change the game. I needed to stop being the prey and start being the predator. And to do that, I needed to be inside the house. I stopped running. I stood in the middle of the sidewalk, gasping for air, letting the heat of the Atlanta pavement radiate through my shoes. Tyson was walking toward me, his phone in his hand, a smug look of victory on his face. He thought I was giving up. He thought I had realized I was powerless. I waited until he was 5 feet away. Then I let my eyes roll back in my head. I let my knees buckle. I let my body go completely limp. I collapsed onto the concrete with a thud that I hoped looked painful enough to be convincing. "Brianna," I heard Tyson shout. I felt his hands grabbing my shoulders. I did not move. I did not breathe. I lay there like a rag doll, letting him shake me. "Help! Someone help!" My wife is unconscious. It was a good performance. Within minutes, I was being carried back into the house. Not the hospital. Tyson did not want doctors asking questions about why his pregnant wife was running away from him. He wanted me contained. He dumped me onto the oversized beige sectional in the living room. I kept my eyes closed, listening to the sound of his breathing. It was heavy and annoyed. He was not worried about me. He was worried about the inconvenience. "Ashley, where are you?" he yelled. In the kitchen, his sister-in-law shouted back, "I am opening a bottle of Pinot. God knows I need it after dealing with her drama all day. She fainted, Tyson said. Just watch her. I need to call Henderson and figure out how to fast-track the paperwork while she is out of it. I heard his footsteps recede down the hallway toward his home office. The door clicked shut. I was alone with Ashley, or so she thought. I felt the couch cushion depress as Ashley sat down near my feet. I could hear the liquid sound of wine being poured into a glass. She took a sip and let out a long, satisfied sigh. Finally, she muttered. Then I heard her stand up. I cracked my right eye open just a sliver. Ashley was not looking at me. She was looking at the spiraling staircase that led up to my master bedroom. Specifically, she was looking toward my walk-in closet. She tiptoed up the stairs. I waited a beat, then another. I heard the floorboards creak overhead. Then I heard her voice drifting down the stairs. She was on the phone. "Hey, babe. Yeah, she is out cold. Tyson says it is stress, but I think she is just faking it for attention. Anyway, listen, you know that white Range Rover I wanted, the one with the tan leather interior? Yeah, get the paperwork ready." I stiffened. "No, I do not have the cash yet." Ashley said, her voice dripping with excitement. "But I am looking at about $50,000 worth of handbags right now. She has 3 Birkins and a limited edition Chanel that still has the tags on it. Tyson said I could get rid of her stuff to make room for the nursery. Selling them is basically doing her a favor." I felt a surge of rage, so hot it almost made me sit up. Those bags were not just accessories. I had bought that Chanel with my first bonus check from Apex. It was a trophy, a symbol of my hard work. And now this woman who had never worked a day in her life was planning to pawn it to buy a car she could not afford. I squeezed my eyes shut and forced myself to breathe. Let her take the bag. Let her dig her own grave. I had a bigger target. I heard Ashley walking around upstairs, opening drawers and closet doors. She was distracted. She was greedy. And greed makes people careless. I sat up. The room spun slightly, but I pushed the dizziness away. I took off my heels so I could move silently. I crept down the hallway toward the office. The door was closed, but I could hear Tyson's voice muffled by the wood. "Yeah, Henderson, I do not care what the law says. Just bribe the judge if you have to. I want full control by tomorrow morning. Jessica is stable, but she could wake up any minute. We are running out of time." He was focused on the phone. He felt safe in his office. He thought his wife was unconscious in the living room. I bypassed the office door. I did not need to go in there to get what I needed. I needed the server room. I slipped into the guest bedroom at the end of the hall. Behind the unassuming closet door was a false panel. I pushed it open, revealing the hidden server rack that powered our entire smart home and served as a backup for Apex Solutions. Tyson knew this room existed, but he did not know how it worked. He thought it was just the internet box. To him, blinking lights were just magic. To me, they were a language. I pulled a small flash drive from the pocket of my dress. I always carried it. A fail-safe. I plugged it into the main port. My fingers flew across the portable keyboard I kept on the shelf. I did not have much time. I accessed the main network. I bypassed Tyson's pathetic firewall, which was just his birthday. I was not just checking his emails. I was installing a rootkit, a piece of software that would mirror everything he did, every keystroke, every password, every deleted file, and most importantly, every sound in the office. I activated the microphone on his desktop computer. I routed the audio feed to a cloud server that only I could access. Upload complete. I pulled the drive. I wiped the access log. I closed the panel. Suddenly, I heard the office door open. "And bring me more wine," Ashley Tyson shouted. Footsteps. He was coming down the hall. I froze. I was trapped in the guest room. If he saw me in here, he would know. He would know I was not the helpless victim he thought I was. I looked around frantically. The window. No too high. Under the bed. Too cliché. I saw the laundry chute. It was small, but I was petite. I scrambled over to the wall and pulled the chute open. I could hear Tyson's heavy footsteps right outside the door. He was humming. He was humming a happy little tune while he plotted to destroy my life. I threw my flash drive down the chute. Then I grabbed a pile of towels from the shelf and buried my face in them, pretending I had wandered in looking for comfort. The door handle turned. "Brianna." Tyson stood in the doorway. He looked suspicious. His eyes darted from me to the closet door. "What are you doing in here?" he asked, his voice sharp. I looked up at him, making my eyes look unfocused and groggy. I let my body sway slightly. I was cold, I mumbled, clutching a towel to my chest. I wanted a blanket. Where am I? Tyson stared at me for a long, agonizing second. He was analyzing me. He was looking for a crack in the mask. Then he sighed. He walked over and grabbed my arm roughly. "You are in the guest room, Brianna. You fainted. You are confused. Come back to the couch. You need to rest before the police come back to check on you." He dragged me back to the living room. As we passed the office, I glanced at his computer screen through the open door. The little green light on his webcam was flickering ever so slightly. He didn't notice it, but I did. I let him push me back onto the sofa. I let him cover me with a blanket. I closed my eyes and listened to him walk away to join Ashley in the kitchen. "Did you get the bag?" Ashley asked. "Got it." Ashley giggled. "And the receipt. We are going to the dealership first thing tomorrow." I lay there in the dark, listening to them toast to their victory. Enjoy the wine, I thought. Enjoy the theft. Because every word you say is being recorded. And tomorrow when you walk into that dealership, you are going to find out that the only thing you are buying is a one-way ticket to prison. I rested my hand on my stomach. "We got him, baby girl," I whispered internally. "The trap is set. Now we just have to wait for the mouse to snap his own neck." The neon sign outside the window of the Starlight Motel buzzed like a dying fly, casting a rhythmic red shadow across the stained carpet. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner, a scent that stuck to the back of my throat. I sat cross-legged on the lumpy mattress, my back pressed against the cold headboard. My designer dress was ruined, and I had not showered in 24 hours, but my mind was sharper than it had ever been. I opened my laptop. It was a rugged machine, not the sleek silver toy Tyson used to check his stocks. This was a developer rig built for war. I connected to the motel's spotty Wi-Fi through an encrypted tunnel. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Connecting to host. IP address verified. Root access granted. On the screen, a small window popped up displaying a waveform. The audio feed from Tyson's office. I adjusted my headphones, pressing them tight against my ears. I closed my eyes and let the sounds of my own home transport me back to the place I had been exiled from. At first, there was only silence. Then the sound of a door opening. Footsteps, heavy and uneven. The clink of glass against glass. "You need to slow down, Tyson." It was Ashley. Her voice was slurred. They were celebrating. "Shut up," Ashley Tyson snapped. His voice was not the smooth baritone he used in public. It was jagged and raw. "I am not drunk. I am thinking." Thinking about what Ashley laughed, a high-pitched, cruel sound. About how you almost killed the wrong bitch. Or about how you are going to spend the money once you finally get her locked up. I held my breath. My finger hovered over the record button. "I am thinking about the timeline," Tyson muttered. "Henderson says the conservatorship paperwork will be in front of a judge by Tuesday, but that is too slow." "It is fast enough," Ashley argued. "She is out on the street, Tyson. She has no money, no cards, no friends. Who is she going to call? The NAACP. She is done. Just relax and pour me another drink. By the way, when do I get my first installment?" This was it. I pressed record. The waveform turned red. "You get your money when I get control of the trust," Tyson said. "I cannot wait that long." Tyson Ashley's voice changed. The playfulness vanished, replaced by a frantic, desperate edge. "You do not understand. Tony came by the condo again this morning. He was not polite this time. He showed me a picture of my car. Then he showed me a picture of me walking out of the gym. Tony was a bookie, a notorious loan shark who operated out of a warehouse in Mechanicsville. I knew the name because I had built an algorithm to track illicit financial flows for the FBI 2 years ago as a freelance project." "How much do you owe him this time?" Ashley Tyson asked. He sounded exhausted, like they had had this conversation a dozen times before. $500, Ashley whispered. $500, Tyson asked. 500,000, Ashley screamed. Her voice cracked. "I chased the losses, Tyson. I thought the Falcons were going to cover the spread. And then I tried to make it back on the poker tables online. It just snowballed. You have to help me. If I do not give him 50 grand by Friday, he's going to break my legs. I stared at the screen. $500,000. That was why she hated me. That was why she looked at my handbags and my car with such venom. It was not just jealousy. It was survival. She was drowning in debt and looking at me like I was a walking ATM. She had encouraged her brother to kill his pregnant wife because she needed my life insurance payout to save her own skin. "You are an idiot," Ashley Tyson groaned. The sound of ice rattling in a glass followed. "I told you to stop gambling." "I did stop," Ashley cried. "But the interest, Tyson, the vigorish, it kills you. You promised me. You said if I helped you with the smoothie, if I helped you with the gaslighting, you would pay off Tony. You said Brianna had plenty of money and she would never miss it." "She wouldn't have missed it if she was dead," Tyson said coldly. "But she is not dead, is she? She is sitting in a motel room plotting, and Jessica is lying in a hospital bed, clinging to life." I felt a chill run down my spine, hearing him say it so casually. If she was dead. He spoke about my murder like it was a failed business transaction, but then the conversation shifted, and what I heard next made Ashley's gambling debt look like pocket change. "Forget about Tony for a second," Tyson said, his voice dropping lower. "You think you have problems. I got an email from the auditors today, the internal audit at Apex." My heart skipped a beat. I had scheduled that audit months ago, a routine check to ensure compliance before our IPO. "They found the gap," Tyson said. "What gap?" Ashley asked, the sound of her pouring more wine filling the silence. "The $4 million I moved to the Cayman accounts," Tyson whispered. I gasped aloud in the empty motel room. $4 million. I frantically opened a second window on my laptop. I pulled up the Apex Shadow Ledger, the one I kept backed up on a private server. I scanned the transaction logs. Nothing. The books looked clean. Then I realized he did not take it from the main accounts. He took it from the tax withholdings and the employee pension fund. He had been skimming off the top for months, hiding the transactions under vendor payments to shell companies. "They are asking for the invoices," Tyson continued. "They want to see the contracts for consulting services in the Cayman Islands. I do not have them, Ashley, because they do not exist. If they dig any deeper, they are going to see that the money went straight into my crypto wallet and then vanished into thin air. So just put it back," Ashley suggested like a child trying to fix a broken vase. "I cannot put it back," Tyson shouted. The sound distorted on my speakers. "It is gone. I lost it on the futures market. All of it." I sat back, stunned. My husband, the man who walked around in custom suits and drove a G-Wagon, was broke. He had stolen from my company my employees and lost it all gambling on digital coins. "If that audit report comes out on Monday, I am going to prison for 20 years, Tyson said. "Federal prison for embezzlement and wire fraud. That is why Brianna has to die, or at least be declared incapacitated." He paused, and I could hear him pacing the floor, the heavy thud of his shoes echoing the pounding of my heart. "If I get power of attorney, I can trigger the emergency sale clause. I can sell Apex to that venture capital firm in New York for $200 million. They do not care about the books, they just want the source code. I can use the signing bonus to fill the hole in the pension fund before the SEC gets involved. Then I take the rest, and we disappear." I covered my mouth with my hand. This was never about him hating me. It was never about him loving Jessica. It was about fear. He was a rat caught in a trap of his own making. He had stolen money he could not repay, and now the walls were closing in. He needed me out of the way so he could sell my life's work to cover his crimes, and Ashley needed me dead so she could pay off a loan shark. They were two drowning people trying to use my body as a raft. I looked at the waveform on the screen. It was still recording. Every word, every confession, every desperate plan. "You have to fix this," Tyson Ashley whimpered. "I cannot deal with Tony." "I will fix it," Tyson said, his voice regaining that terrifying calm. "I hired a private investigator. He is tracking Brianna's phone. We will find her, and when we do, we will make sure she does not faint this time. We will make sure she never wakes up." I looked at my phone lying on the bed. I had turned the GPS off, but if he had hired a professional, they could triangulate the signal from the cell towers. I was not safe here, but I had what I needed. I had the truth. I stopped the recording. I saved the file to 3 different cloud servers and emailed a copy to Howard Jameson. I named the file The Coffin Nails. I closed the laptop and shoved it into my bag. I stood up and looked around the dingy motel room. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. For 5 years, I had tried to be the perfect wife. I had dimmed my light so Tyson could shine. I had let him pretend to be the boss so he would not feel insecure. I had played the role of the supportive partner while he spent my money and betrayed my trust. That woman was gone. I walked to the door and looked at the deadbolt. It was flimsy. It would not stop a professional. I needed to move. But I was not running away anymore. Tyson wanted to sell Apex. He wanted to use my company to save himself. He forgot one thing. I wrote the code, I built the walls, and I knew where the back door was. I opened the door to the humid night air. "You want a war, Tyson?" I whispered into the darkness. "You just declared one on the wrong woman." I walked toward the parking lot, leaving the motel behind. I was going to the one place where I could end this, the one place where Tyson thought he was king but was actually just a trespasser. I was going to Apex Solutions, and I was going to introduce him to the real boss. Northside Hospital was a fortress of glass and steel, glowing in the dark Atlanta night like a beacon of sickness. I stood in the shadows of the parking garage, watching the main entrance. 2 police cruisers were parked out front, their lights spinning lazily. They were looking for me. Tyson had probably told them I was armed and dangerous. He had probably told them I was coming back to finish the job I started with the smoothie. He was right about one thing. I was coming back to finish the job, but not the way he thought. I walked around to the loading dock near the laundry services entrance. I knew from my time optimizing the hospital's billing software 3 years ago that the shift change happened at 11 p.m. I watched a group of tired orderlies smoking cigarettes by the dumpster. When they laughed at a joke, I slipped past them through the propped open door. The air inside smelled of industrial detergent and blood. I found a laundry cart filled with clean scrubs. I grabbed a set of blue ones and pulled them on over my ruined designer dress. I tied my hair back and put on a surgical mask I found in a box near the freight elevator. I looked at my reflection in the polished metal of the elevator doors. Brianna, the CEO, was gone. Brianna, the fugitive wife, was gone. In her place was just another invisible black woman working the night shift, a woman nobody would look at twice, a woman Tyson would not even hold the door for. I took the service elevator to the 4th floor, the ICU. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but my hands were steady. I walked down the sterile hallway, keeping my head down. I passed the nurses' station. They were too busy arguing about a shift schedule to notice me. I scanned the room numbers. Room 402. There was no police guard outside. Tyson must have convinced them that Jessica was the victim and I was the runner. Or maybe he just did not want anyone listening if she woke up and started talking. I pushed the door open and slipped inside. The room was dark, lit only by the rhythmic green glow of the heart monitor. The steady beep, beep, beep was the only sound in the room. I walked to the side of the bed. Jessica looked small. The arrogance that usually defined her was gone, stripped away by the ventilator tube that had just been removed and the IV line snaking into her arms. Her skin was pale, and she looked like a broken doll. I stood there for a moment looking at the woman who had helped destroy my marriage. I should have hated her. I did hate her. She had mocked me in my own kitchen. She had slept with my husband in my bed while I was at prenatal yoga. She had plotted to sell my handbags to buy a Range Rover. But looking at her now, all I felt was a cold pity. She was not a villain. She was just a tool, a disposable object that Tyson had used and broken. Suddenly, her eyes fluttered open. It took her a moment to focus. She blinked groggily, looking at the ceiling. Then she turned her head and saw me standing in the shadows. Her eyes went wide. She tried to sit up, but the movement made her gasp in pain. She reached for the call button, her hand trembling. "Do not touch that button, Jessica," I said, my voice low and calm. She froze. She recognized my voice. "Brianna." she rasped. Her throat was raw from the intubation. Get out! Get out or I will scream. Tyson! I want Tyson! I stepped out of the shadows and pulled down my mask. Tyson is not coming, Jessica, I said, walking closer to the bed. Tyson is at home drinking my wine and planning his next move. He loves me. Jessica hissed, her voice full of venom. He told me everything. He told me you tried to poison me because you were jealous. You are a psycho. The police are looking for you. When Tyson gets here, he is going to make sure you rot in prison. I laughed. It was a soft sound, but in the quiet room it sounded cruel. He loves you, I repeated. Is that what he told you? That he loves you? That he was going to leave me and run away with you to the Caymans? Yes, she spat. We are going to be happy. He is going to sell that stupid company of yours, and we are going to start over. He promised me. I pulled a chair over and sat down next to her bed. I crossed my legs and looked at her with the same expression I used when I was firing an incompetent developer. Jessica, you are smarter than this. You are an executive assistant. You organize lives for a living. Look at the facts. Who made the smoothie? You did, she said, but her eyes flickered with doubt. Tyson said you put the powder in it. Tyson made it, I corrected her. He made it for me. He tried to force me to drink it. I gave it to you because I felt sick. Do you really think I would carry around arsenic in my purse just waiting for you to stop by? She stared at me, breathing heavily. I don't believe you. I sighed. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I hacked into Tyson's computer tonight, Jessica. I have been listening to him for the last 3 hours. Do you want to know what he is doing right now? I didn't wait for her answer. I opened the file I had saved, the text message log. He was texting Ashley while you were in the ambulance, I said, holding the screen up to her face. While you were convulsing on the driveway while foam was coming out of your mouth, the man who loves you sent this message to his sister-in-law. Read it, Jessica. She looked at the screen. Her eyes scanned the text bubble. From Tyson to Ashley. 10:45 a.m. The assistant drank it. Idiot girl. It is messy, but it might work better this way. If she dies, it saves me the severance package. Just make sure the police focus on Brianna. The girl is collateral damage. Who cares? The important thing is that Brianna goes down so I can trigger the sale. I watched the light die in Jessica's eyes. She read it again and again. Her lips moved silently, forming the words, collateral damage. No, she whispered. A tear leaked out of the corner of her eye and slid into her hair. No. He said I was his soulmate. He said I was the only one who understood him. He lied, I said, putting the phone away. He does not love you, Jessica. He does not love me. He loves money. He has a $4 million hole in the company accounts that he needs to fill before the auditors find it on Monday. We are just obstacles. I am the obstacle with the bank account. You are the obstacle that knows too much. She looked at me, and for the first time I saw the fear. Real fear. Not the fear of a woman facing her boyfriend's wife, but the fear of a woman realizing she had been sleeping with a monster. He was going to let me die, she said, her voice breaking. He was hoping you would die, I clarified. Dead women don't testify. Dead women don't ask for Range Rovers. If you die tonight, Jessica, he wins. He blames it on me, gets the money and disappears. I leaned in closer. But you are not dead. And that is his biggest problem. Jessica turned her head away, staring at the wall. Her chest was heaving. The betrayal was hitting her harder than the poison. She had risked everything for him. She had helped him gaslight me. She had helped him isolate me. And in the end, she was worth less to him than a severance package. Why are you here, Brianna? She asked quietly. Why didn't you just let me die? I tried to ruin your life. Because I need you, I said simply. I am a businesswoman, Jessica. I deal in assets and liabilities. Right now, you are my biggest asset. I need you to testify. Jessica laughed, a bitter hacking sound that turned into a cough. You want me to go to the police? And say what? That I was sleeping with your husband, that I helped him plan to steal your company. I will go to jail, Brianna. I am an accomplice. You are a victim, I said firmly. You were manipulated by a narcissist who tried to murder you. If you come forward now, if you give me the evidence I need, I will make sure Howard Jameson represents you. He will cut a deal. Immunity for testimony. You walk away. And if I don't, she asked, looking back at me. I stood up and smoothed out my scrubs. If you don't, then I walk out of here. I disappear, and tomorrow morning Tyson will find out you are awake. And do you think he will bring you flowers? Or do you think he will bring another smoothie? Jessica flinched. She looked at the door as if expecting Tyson to burst in with a syringe. He tried to kill me once, she whispered. He will do it again. Exactly, I said. You have two choices, Jessica. You can protect the man who called you collateral damage and wait for him to finish the job. Or you can help me destroy him. She looked at me, really looked at me. The hatred was gone. In its place was a shared understanding. We were two women who had been played by the same mediocre man. We were the casualties of his ambition. But I was done being a casualty, and I could see the spark of anger igniting in Jessica's eyes. What do you need me to do? She asked. I smiled. A real smile this time. I need you to stay dead, I said. What? She asked, confused. For the next 12 hours, I need Tyson to think you are still in a coma, I explained. I need him to feel safe. I need him to walk into that shareholder meeting tomorrow morning thinking he has won. I need him to stand up in front of the board and claim he owns the company. And then I said, my smile turning dangerous. I want you to walk through the door. Jessica lay back against the pillows. She closed her eyes. She took a deep breath, inhaling the sterile air of the hospital room that had almost been her tomb. When she opened her eyes again, they were hard as flint. He promised me a white Range Rover, she said softly. I waited. Screw the car, she said. I want to see his face when he realizes he lost everything. She reached out her hand. It was weak and trembling, but I took it. Her grip was cold, but her resolve was hot. I am in, she said. Good, I said, squeezing her hand. Get some rest, Jessica. You have a big performance tomorrow. I turned to leave, but she called my name. Brianna. I stopped at the door. He really didn't put the powder in the smoothie for me, she asked. Her voice was small, almost childlike. No, Jessica, I said, looking back at her. He made it for me. He wanted to kill his pregnant wife. You just got in the way. She nodded slowly, a single tear tracking through the makeup she hadn't washed off. He is a devil, she whispered. No, I said, pushing the door open. He is just a man, and tomorrow we are going to show the world exactly how small he really is. I slipped back into the hallway, pulling my mask up. I walked past the nurse's station, past the sleeping guard, past the oblivious world. I had the recording. I had the witness. I had the truth. Tyson was sleeping in my bed tonight thinking he was a king. He was dreaming of millions of dollars and a life without consequences. Sleep tight, husband, I thought as I stepped into the elevator, because when you wake up, the nightmare begins. I stepped out of the service elevator and into the cool, damp air of the parking garage. My heart was still racing from the conversation with Jessica, but for the first time in days, it was beating with hope instead of fear. I had done the impossible. I had turned the mistress into the witness. I walked quickly toward the shadows where I had agreed to meet Howard. He had arranged for a private ambulance to transfer Jessica to a secure facility the moment I gave the signal. We could not leave her in that hospital. Not when Tyson had access to the room numbers. Not when he had already tried to kill her once. As I watched the unmarked van pull away with Jessica safely inside, I felt a wave of relief. She was safe. She was off the grid. And tomorrow she would be the ghost that haunted Tyson Carter for the rest of his life. But as I pulled my phone out to check the time, the screen lit up with a blinding white light. A high-pitched siren wailed from the speakers, a sound that made my blood freeze in my veins. It was the emergency alert system. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. Critical missing person alert. Suspect armed and dangerous. Suspect name, Brianna Carter, age 30. African-American female, pregnant. wanted in connection with the abduction of a comatose patient from Northside Hospital. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the concrete, but the siren kept wailing, screaming my name into the night. He had done it. Tyson had found out I was not at the motel. His private investigator must have kicked down the door of room 112 and found nothing but an empty bed and the lingering smell of my perfume. He realized I was gone. He realized I was moving. And like a cornered animal, he lashed out with the only weapon he had left. The police. I could see the narrative building in his head. He calls 911. He plays the frantic husband. He tells them his mentally unstable wife has snapped completely. He tells them I went to the hospital to finish what I started. He tells them I dragged Jessica out of her bed to kill her. He did not know I had moved her to save her. He spun it so that her disappearance looked like a murder in progress. I heard sirens in the distance, real sirens this time. Not the ones on my phone. They were getting louder, converging on the hospital. He had swatted me. He had turned the entire Atlanta Police Department into his personal hit squad. I scrambled into the back seat of Howard's black SUV, which was idling in the corner. Howard was in the driver's seat. His face was pale, illuminated by the blue light of the dashboard. "You saw it," Howard asked, his voice tight. "Drive," I said, buckling my seatbelt. "Just drive, Howard." He peeled out of the garage, the tires screeching on the pavement. We merged onto the highway just as 3 police cruisers sped past us, in the opposite direction, their lights flashing red and blue against the skyline. I turned on the radio. It was already on the news. Breaking news tonight. A manhunt is underway in Buckhead for the wife of prominent tech CEO Tyson Carter. Police say Brianna Carter, who is currently out on bail for attempted murder, has abducted a critical patient from Northside Hospital. Mr. Carter has issued a plea for his wife's safe surrender, stating that she is suffering from a severe psychotic break. I listened to his voice on the radio clip. "Brianna, if you can hear this, please do not hurt her. Please just come home. We can get you help. I love you." I wanted to scream. The audacity of this man. He was using the public airwaves to paint me as a monster while he sat in my house drinking my wine. He was turning the whole city against me. Every car passing us on the highway was a potential threat. Every person looking at their phone was seeing my face. Howard glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "We cannot go to the safe house, Brianna. He will have the police watching every property associated with your name. He will have them watching my office. He will have them watching your mother's house." "Then, where do we go?" I asked, staring out the window at the city that was trying to eat me alive. "We have to go underground," Howard said. "Truly underground. I have a client. An old client from the days before I was a corporate lawyer. He owes me a favor. He runs a salvage yard in Bankhead. No cameras, no questions. Do it," I said. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened it. "I know you took her. Bring her back or I will tell the police you have a gun. I will tell them to shoot on sight." It was Tyson. He was not just trying to arrest me. He was trying to get me killed. He wanted a confrontation. He wanted the police to see a black woman running away and make a split-second decision. He wanted me to become a statistic so he could become a widower. I typed a response, my fingers flying across the screen. "You want a show, Tyson? I will give you a show, but you better save a front row seat for tomorrow morning." I hit send and then I rolled down the window. I threw the phone out onto the highway. I watched it bounce and shatter into 1,000 pieces under the wheels of an 18-wheeler. "Let them track that," I whispered. We drove into the darkness, leaving the glittering lights of Buckhead behind. I was a fugitive now, a kidnapper, a psycho. The world saw a villain, but they were looking at the wrong story. Tyson thought this was the end of the line. He thought he had trapped me. He thought that by turning the law against me, he could silence the truth. He forgot that pressure creates diamonds. And he forgot that I was carrying the most dangerous weapon of all. I was carrying the receipts. As we pulled into the rusted gates of the salvage yard, I looked at my reflection in the dark glass. I did not look like a victim anymore. I looked like a storm. Let him send the police. Let him send the news choppers. Let him send the whole damn world. I was not running anymore. I was waiting. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., the shareholders of Apex Solutions were going to gather for the most important meeting in the company's history. Tyson expected to be crowned king. He had no idea that the queen was coming to take off his head. The office of the salvage yard was a rusted metal box that smelled of motor oil and stale cigar smoke. Rain drummed rhythmically against the corrugated tin roof, creating a lonely industrial symphony that matched the storm raging inside my chest. I sat on a torn vinyl sofa, watching a small, static-filled television set that Howard had plugged in. It was 6 in the morning. The sun had not yet risen over Atlanta, but the media circus was already in full swing. Howard stood by the window, peering through the blinds at the empty yard outside. He looked tired. We had not slept. We had spent the night planning, organizing, and waiting, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to see on that screen. The channel was tuned to the biggest morning news show in the state. Usually they covered traffic jams and cat rescues. Today, the banner at the bottom of the screen read, "The Fall of the Apex Dynasty." The camera cut to the studio. Sitting on the beige couch looking like a fragile porcelain doll was Ashley. She was wearing a soft pastel cardigan and a pearl necklace. Her hair was pulled back in a modest bun. She looked nothing like the woman who had screamed about handbags and debts just hours ago. She looked like a saint. She looked like the victim. And sitting next to her, holding her hand with a stoic, brave expression, was Tyson. The interviewer, a woman with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, leaned in with a look of practiced concern. "Ashley, thank you for being here during this difficult time," the interviewer said softly. "I know this is hard for the family. Can you tell us what happened leading up to the incident at the hospital?" Ashley dabbled a tissue to her dry eyes. She took a shaky breath. "It is just so heartbreaking," Ashley whispered, her voice trembling perfectly. "We tried so hard to help her. Brianna has always been troubled. You have to understand, she comes from a very different world than we do. Tyson and I were raised to value composure and dignity. But Brianna had a very difficult upbringing. She carried a lot of anger from her past, a lot of trauma from growing up in the inner city." I gripped the arm of the sofa so hard my fingernails tore into the vinyl. She was playing the race card without saying the word race. She was painting me as the angry black woman from the ghetto who couldn't handle high society. She was weaponizing my struggle against me. The interviewer nodded sympathetically. "And you think this background contributed to her breakdown?" Ashley nodded vigorously. "Absolutely. When Tyson started having so much success with Apex Solutions, when he started landing these multi-million-dollar deals, I think Brianna just snapped. She could not handle being in his shadow. She was jealous, pathologically jealous. She started accusing him of things. She started hallucinating affairs. She became aggressive, loud, violent." Tyson squeezed her hand, looking down at the floor. "I just wanted to protect her," Tyson said, his voice low and rich. "I hired the best doctors. I tried to get her into a private clinic, but she was convinced I was trying to hurt her. That is the tragedy of mental illness. She turned the person who loved her most into the villain. I felt like I was going to vomit. The narrative was perfect. The genius billionaire husband trying to save his crazy street smart wife. It was a story America loved to eat up." The interviewer turned to the camera. "Police are currently searching for Brianna Carter, who is considered armed and dangerous. She was last seen fleeing Northside Hospital after forcibly removing a comatose patient from life support." Forcibly removing. They made it sound like I ripped the tubes out. They made it sound like I had kidnapped Jessica to torture her. Ashley looked directly into the camera lens. "Brianna, if you are watching this, please let that poor girl go. Jessica is innocent. She is just an assistant. She does not deserve to die because you are insecure. Please do not hurt anyone else. Just turn yourself in." The segment ended. The screen cut to a commercial for detergent, but the damage was done. I pulled out the burner phone Howard had given me and opened Twitter. My name was trending. #1 in the United States. I clicked on the hashtag #Brianna Carter. The comments were a cesspool. "She looks crazy in her mugshot." I knew she was a gold digger. Typical. Man works hard to build an empire and the wife tries to burn it down. I heard she was just a diversity hire admin who seduced the CEO. Hope the police find her before she hurts that assistant. Thousands of tweets. Millions of views. In 10 minutes, Ashley had dismantled my entire reputation. She had erased my degrees. She had erased my patents. She had erased the late nights and the sacrifices. To the world, I was no longer the founder of Apex Solutions. I was just the crazy, jealous wife of the genius Tyson Carter. But the character assassination was just the opening act. The real blow came next. The news anchor returned looking grave. In related news, the scandal surrounding the Carter family has sent shockwaves through the financial world. Apex Solutions, the tech giant founded by Tyson Carter, has seen its stock price plummet 30% in pre-market trading. A graph appeared on the screen, a jagged red line diving straight down. 30%. That was hundreds of millions of dollars of valuation vanishing in seconds. The anchor continued. Major investors are calling for immediate action. The planned acquisition by New York venture partners has been put on hold indefinitely. Analysts are saying that without stable leadership, Apex Solutions could be facing bankruptcy within the week. My phone started buzzing. Howard's phone started ringing. Howard picked it up, listened for a second, and then put it on speaker. It was the chairman of the board, a man named Marcus Sterling, a man I had personally recruited, a man I respected. Howard put her on. Sterling barked, "I know she is with you." Howard looked at me. I nodded. "I am here, Marcus," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. "Brianna." "What the hell is going on?" Sterling shouted. "I have the SEC on line 1. I have the bank on line 2 calling in our loans. And I have a television screen showing you as a fugitive." "It is a lie," Marcus, I said. "Tyson is lying. He is the one who poisoned Jessica. He is the one embezzling from the pension fund. I do not care about your domestic drama." Sterling cut me off. "I care about the company. The stock is in free fall, Brianna. We are bleeding out. The board has called an emergency vote." When I asked, cold dread filling my stomach. 9 a.m. "Today," Sterling said. "We are moving to trigger the emergency succession clause. We are going to vote to remove you from all executive functions and hand full control to Tyson." What I screamed. "You cannot do that. Tyson is the fraud. If you give him control, he will sell the company and run." Sterling sighed. He sounded defeated. "Brianna, look at the optics. You are a fugitive wanted for kidnapping. Tyson is the grieving husband trying to save the ship. The investors want stability. They want a face they can trust. Right now, that face is not you. Unless you can prove otherwise in the next 3 hours, we are voting you out. And Brianna, if you show up at the building, the police will be waiting." The line went dead. I lowered the phone. My hand was shaking. They were going to take it all. My company, my baby, my legacy. They were going to hand it to Tyson on a silver platter because he looked the part and I did not. Because he had the right skin tone and the right sobbing sister-in-law on TV. I looked at the television again. The stock ticker was scrolling at the bottom. Apex, 35%. I looked at Howard. He was already packing his briefcase. "We have a problem, Brianna," he said grimly. "If the board votes Tyson in as interim CEO, he will have the authority to fire me as the company counsel. He will have the authority to delete the server logs. He will have the authority to settle with Jessica using company money to buy her silence. If he wins that vote, the game is over." I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the rain washing over the piles of rusted metal. The world saw me as trash. They saw me as something to be discarded, just like these wrecked cars. But they forgot that you can build a tank out of scrap metal if you know how to weld. "Turn off the TV." "Howard," I said softly. He unplugged it. The image of Ashley's fake tears vanished into blackness. I turned around. I was done crying. I was done feeling the sting of their insults. They wanted to call me ghetto. They wanted to call me street. Fine, I would show them exactly what someone from the streets does when they are backed into a corner. We do not negotiate. We do not ask for permission. We kick the door down. "Do you have the documents ready?" I asked Howard. He patted his briefcase. "The affidavits, the bank records, the recordings, and Jessica's signed testimony from the ambulance. It is all here. And the security team?" I asked. Howard nodded. My guy says the loading dock is porous. The police are focused on the front entrance and the lobby. If we go in through the server maintenance tunnels, we can get to the boardroom before anyone knows we are in the building. The server tunnels, I smiled. Tyson didn't even know those tunnels existed. He didn't know that when I designed the Apex headquarters, I built a hardline connection to the mainframe in the basement just in case of a cyber attack. He was fighting a PR war. I was fighting an infrastructure war. "Let us go, Howard," I said, grabbing my coat. But Brianna Howard hesitated. "If we walk into that boardroom, you are going to be arrested. The police will be there in seconds." "I know," I said, zipping up my coat over my scrubs. I looked at my reflection in the dark glass of the window one last time. "I am not going there to escape arrest, Howard. I am going there to make sure that when the handcuffs go on, they go on the right wrists." I walked out into the rain. The storm was loud, but my mind was quiet. Ashley thought she had destroyed me with a morning show interview. She thought she had painted me as a monster. She was about to find out that she was right. I was a monster. I was the monster they had created, and I was coming to eat them alive. The rain had turned into a torrential downpour by the time Howard's black SUV pulled up to the front steps of the Atlanta Police Department Precinct Zone 2. The scene outside looked like a movie premiere for a disaster film. News vans were double parked along the curb, their satellite dishes pointed at the sky like hungry birds. Dozens of reporters huddled under umbrellas, their breath visible in the damp morning air. They were waiting for the kill. They were waiting for the angry fugitive wife to be dragged in chains. I checked my reflection in the visor mirror one last time. I was still wearing the blue scrubs I had stolen from the hospital. My hair was pulled back. I wore no makeup. I did not look like a CEO. I did not look like a socialite. I looked like exactly what I was. A tired, pregnant woman who had been pushed too far. "Ready?" Howard asked from the driver's seat. He checked his watch. It was 7:30 in the morning. The shareholder meeting was in 90 minutes. "I am ready," I said. Howard opened his door and stepped out, snapping a large black umbrella open. He walked around the car and opened my door. The moment my foot touched the pavement, the sharks smelled blood. "There she is. Brianna over here." "Did you kill her, Brianna? Where is the body?" The shouts were deafening. Flashbulbs erupted like lightning, blinding me even through the rain. I kept my head high. I did not cover my face. I did not look down. I walked up those concrete steps with a hand on my stomach, staring straight ahead at the glass doors where two uniformed officers were already reaching for their handcuffs. "Mrs. Carter, you are under arrest for kidnapping and assault." One officer shouted, lunging forward. Howard stepped between us, his briefcase acting as a shield. "My client is surrendering voluntarily." Howard boomed his voice, cutting through the noise. "And she is not under arrest until you charge her, and you are not going to charge her once you see what is in this bag." The officer hesitated. He knew Howard Jameson. Every cop in Atlanta knew Howard Jameson. He was the man who sued the department for $5 million last year and won. "Move," Howard said softly. The officers parted. I walked into the precinct, leaving the screaming mob behind. Inside, the air was stagnant. A hush fell over the bullpen as I walked in. Detectives stopped typing. Officers stopped drinking their coffee. They all turned to look at the woman whose face had been on their televisions all morning. The woman who was supposed to be a monster. Detective Miller, the lead investigator on the case, walked out of his office. He was a thick-set man with a red face and eyes that looked like they had seen too much and understood too little. He looked at me with a mixture of triumph and disgust. "Well, well," Miller said, hooking his thumbs into his belt. "The runaway bride returns. Where is the girl Brianna? Did you dump her in a ditch on the way here?" I sat down in the nearest metal chair. I did not ask for permission. "She is eating breakfast, Detective," I said calmly. "Oatmeal and fruit. She is in a private recovery facility in Savannah, under a pseudonym." Miller laughed, a harsh barking sound. "You expect me to believe that? You kidnapped a comatose woman. That is a federal offense." "I didn't kidnap her," I said, leaning forward. "I rescued her, because the man who put her in that coma was coming back to finish the job." Miller's smile faded. He leaned over the desk, invading my personal space. Tyson Carter is a respected businessman, Brianna. He is a victim here. You are the one with the motive. You are the one with the history of instability. Ashley told us everything. Ashley, I repeated slowly. You mean the woman with $500,000 in gambling debts. The woman who needs my life insurance money to keep her kneecaps intact. That is your star witness, detective. Miller paused. He did not know about the debts. I could see the doubt flicker in his eyes for a microsecond before he squashed it. Save the stories for the judge, Miller spat. Stand up. You are being booked for kidnapping and attempted murder. Howard placed his briefcase on the desk with a heavy thud. He opened the latches with 2 loud clicks. Before you put those cuffs on my client, Detective Howard said, his voice smooth as silk. You need to review this. He pulled out a single sheet of paper. This is a notarized affidavit signed by Jessica Miles at 3 a.m. this morning, Howard explained. It states clearly that she left the hospital voluntarily with Mrs. Carter. It states that she was not coerced. And most importantly, it states that she fears for her life from one person. And that person is not Brianna. Miller snatched the paper. He read it, his eyes scanning the lines quickly. She was drugged, Miller argued. She just came out of a coma. This is inadmissible. Is it? Howard asked. He pulled out a tablet. Here is the video statement she recorded. She looks pretty lucid to me. He pressed play. Jessica's face filled the screen. She looked pale, but her eyes were sharp. She looked straight into the camera and said, Tyson Carter tried to kill me. Brianna saved my life. Miller stared at the screen. The silence in the bullpen was heavy. That is just her word against his, Miller muttered, but his confidence was cracking. It is a love triangle. He broke her heart, so she is helping the wife. It proves nothing about the poison. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a small silver USB drive. This proves the poison, I said, placing it on the desk. What is this? Miller asked, eyeing the drive like it was a bomb. I call it the coffin nails, I said. I recorded this last night, detective, in my home, the home my husband kicked me out of. Howard plugged the drive into his laptop and connected it to the precinct speakers. Tyson's voice filled the room, distorted by the recording but unmistakable. The assistant drank it. Idiot girl. It is messy, but it might work better this way. If she dies, it saves me the severance package. Miller's face went pale. He looked at the other detectives who were now standing up and moving closer. If that audit report comes out on Monday, I am going to prison for 20 years. That is why Brianna has to die. The recording played on. The room listened to Tyson admit to the embezzlement, to the gambling losses, to the plan to sell the company, to the hitman he hired to track me. When the recording ended, the silence was absolute. Miller looked at me. The disgust was gone from his eyes, replaced by horror. He realized he had been played. He realized he had been on national television defending a man who admitted to trying to kill 2 women. He sat down heavily in his chair. We have to pick him up, Miller said quietly. He reached for his radio. I need units to the Carter residence immediately. Wait, I said. Miller looked at me confused. Wait. Brianna, this man is dangerous. We have enough here to put him away for life. I know, I said. But if you arrest him now, he will lawyer up. He will claim the recording is a deep fake. He will claim I manipulated it. He has expensive lawyers, detective. They will drag this out for years. Then what do you want? Miller asked. I stood up. I walked to the wall map of Atlanta. I pointed to a glass skyscraper in Midtown, the Apex Solutions headquarters. He is going to be there at 9 a.m., I said. He is walking into a shareholder meeting to seize control of my company. He thinks I am in jail. He thinks Jessica is dead or missing. He feels safe. I turned back to Miller. I want you to let him walk into that meeting. I want you to let him stand up in front of the board and the investors. I want you to let him commit the final crime. Let him sign the papers claiming he owns the company. Let him perjure himself on the record. And then I asked, my voice hard as steel, and then I want you to walk in. Miller looked at Howard. Howard nodded. It is a solid play, Detective Howard said. If you arrest him at home, it is a domestic dispute. If you arrest him in the boardroom after he signs fraudulent documents, it is federal corporate fraud plus attempted murder. You get him on everything. It is the difference between a plea deal and a life sentence." Miller rubbed his chin. He was a cop. He liked the big bust. He liked the headline. PD takes down corrupt CEO. It looked a lot better than PD harasses pregnant wife. "Okay," Miller said. "We will set up a perimeter around the Apex building, but you stay here. You are in protective custody." "No," I said. Miller frowned. "Brianna, you are a material witness. I am the CEO." I corrected him, and that is my meeting. I walked back to the desk and picked up my purse. I am not going to sit in a holding cell while he tries to steal my legacy. I am going to be sitting at the head of the table when you walk in. Miller looked at Howard. Howard just shrugged. "She is out on bail," Detective Howard reminded him. "The kidnapping charge is gone. You have no grounds to hold her." Miller sighed. He looked at me with a grudging respect. "You are playing a dangerous game, Mrs. Carter. I am not playing detective," I said, walking toward the door. "I am finishing it." I walked back out into the lobby. The rain had stopped. The sun was trying to break through the clouds. The reporters were still there waiting for the perp walk, waiting to see me in handcuffs. Instead, they saw me walk out freely, flanked by my lawyer. "Mrs. Carter, why were you released?" one reporter shouted. "Is it true you kidnapped the girl?" I stopped. I looked directly into the camera lens of the channel that had interviewed Ashley this morning. "I want you to broadcast this live," I said, my voice projecting over the crowd. The cameras zoomed in. "My husband, Tyson Carter, told you this morning that I was mentally unstable. He told you I was a danger to society. He told you I was jealous of his success." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "I am on my way to the Apex Solutions headquarters right now. I am going to show the shareholders the truth, and I am inviting all of you to wait outside, because in about 1 hour you are going to see who the real criminal is." I turned and got back into the SUV. "Drive, Howard," I said. As we pulled away, I pulled out my laptop. I had one more card to play. I had given the police the audio. I had given them the testimony, but I had held back the financial records. The shadow ledger proving the embezzlement. I didn't give it to Miller because I didn't want the police to freeze the company accounts yet. I needed the accounts active. I needed Tyson to believe the money was still there. I needed him to try to move it, because I had set a trap in the code, a digital tripwire. The moment Tyson used his CEO access key to try and sell the company, the system would not just block him, it would broadcast his screen to every monitor in the building, including the 60-inch screen in the boardroom. He was going to show the world his guilt with his own hands. We merged onto the highway toward Midtown. The skyline glittered ahead of us. Apex Tower stood tall and proud in the center. It looked like a castle, and the Queen was coming home. "Are you nervous?" Howard asked, glancing at me. I looked at my hands. They were steady. I felt the baby kick, a strong, assertive kick. "No, Howard," I said. "I am not nervous. I am just ready to take out the trash." The SUV sped up, cutting through the morning traffic. The hunt was over. The trap was set. Now all I had to do was walk into the lion's den and look him in the eye. And smile. We were 2 blocks away from Apex Tower when Howard Jameson's phone rang. It was not the standard trill of his office line. It was the sharp, jarring tone of his emergency encrypted line, the one he reserved for life or death situations. Howard answered it on the first ring. He did not say hello. He just listened, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the steering wheel. I watched his face in the rearview mirror. Howard was a man who had stared down cartels and corrupt senators without blinking. But as he listened to the voice on the other end of the line, his jaw tightened and a flicker of genuine alarm passed through his eyes. He hung up the phone and slammed his hand against the dashboard. "Damn it," Howard cursed. "What happened?" I asked, my hand instinctively going to my stomach. "Did they find Jessica? Is she safe?" "Jessica is fine," Howard said, his voice tight. "It is Tyson." I felt a cold knot form in my chest. What about Tyson? Detective Miller was supposed to let him walk into the meeting. "He is not just walking into the meeting," Brianna Howard said, looking at me in the mirror. "He is walking in with an escort, and not the police." I frowned. "What do you mean?" My contact at the precinct just called Howard explained. Detective Miller tried to detain Tyson for questioning regarding the false police report. Just a hold, just to rattle him before the meeting. But before Miller could even read him his rights, a team of lawyers showed up. Not Tyson's usual guys. These were suits from New York. Corporate sharks. They presented a writ of habeas corpus, signed by a federal judge, Howard continued. And they posted bond. $5 million. Cash. I stared at him. $5 million. Tyson didn't have $5,000. He was broke. He had stolen from the pension fund to cover his crypto losses. Who paid it, I asked. Howard merged into the fast lane, cutting off a taxi. That is the bad news, Brianna. The bail was posted by a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands, but the lawyers acting on their behalf represent Vanguard Capital. I gasped. Vanguard Capital? They were the shadowy investment firm that had been trying to buy Apex for years. I had always refused them because they were known for stripping companies for parts and firing the entire workforce. They were vultures. Tyson didn't just sell the company, I realized. He sold his soul. He went to them, I whispered. He knew he was in trouble, so he went to the sharks. He promised them the sale if they kept him out of jail long enough to sign the papers. Exactly, Howard said. And now he feels invincible. He has the police off his back. He has unlimited funding, and he knows you are coming. My phone vibrated in my lap. It was a text message. I stared at the screen. The name at the top was husband. A word that used to mean safety now looked like a threat. I picked up the phone. My fingers were trembling, not from fear, but from a rage so hot it felt like it could melt the glass. I opened the message. You thought you could trap me with a recording. You are so small, Brianna. You have no idea who you are dealing with. I have friends now. Powerful friends. Go ahead and run to your lawyer. It does not matter. Tomorrow I will kick you out of the company for good. You have no rights. You have no power. I am the CEO, and you are just a memory. I read the text twice. Tomorrow. He was so arrogant. He thought he had bought himself time. He thought that because he had Vanguard Capital behind him, he could delay the inevitable. He thought he could push the vote walk over me and finalize the sale tomorrow while I was buried in legal paperwork. He didn't know I was 2 minutes away. He didn't know I wasn't coming with a lawyer to argue. I was coming with a digital nuclear bomb to detonate. I looked up at the Apex Tower looming ahead of us. It was a monolith of glass and steel reflecting the gray sky. It looked impenetrable, a fortress guarded by money and corruption. Tyson was up there right now, probably pouring a drink, probably laughing with Ashley, probably shaking hands with the men who had paid his bail thinking he had won the lottery. He thought he was the player. He didn't realize he was just the pawn. Vanguard Capital didn't care about Tyson. They just wanted the code. Once he signed those papers, they would discard him, just like he discarded me. I gripped the phone tight. He thinks he is the CEO, I said to Howard, my voice low and dangerous. Howard glanced at me. He thinks he is untouchable, Brianna. Vanguard protects their assets. He is not an asset. Howard, I said, looking at the building. He is a liability, and I am about to call in the debt. I did not text him back. I did not warn him. I put the phone away. Drive to the loading dock, Howard, I said. Howard nodded and swung the heavy SUV into the service lane. Tyson had his dark investors. He had his millions. He had his arrogance. But as we descended into the dark tunnel beneath the building, I touched the cool metal of the USB drive in my pocket. He had forgotten the most important rule of business. Never underestimate the person who built the castle. Because I knew where the foundation was weak, and I was going to bring the whole thing down on top of his head. The boardroom on the 50th floor of the Apex Tower was designed to intimidate. It was a glass cage floating in the clouds, an aquarium for sharks who wore $3,000 suits. The table was 30 feet of black marble cold to the touch and polished to a mirror shine. It was a table where careers were made and lives were ruined with the stroke of a pen. I stood outside the double mahogany doors, my hand resting on the brass handle. I could hear the muffled sound of Tyson's voice through the wood. He was speaking with the rhythmic cadence of a preacher selling salvation. He was in his element. He was performing. I looked at Howard standing beside me. He nodded once, a grim expression on his face. He checked his watch. It was exactly 9 o'clock. Inside the room, the air conditioning was humming a low, steady drone that recycled the tension in the air. 12 men sat around that black table. They were the board of directors, men who controlled billions of dollars in capital, men who did not care about truth, only about profit margins and quarterly reports. Tyson stood at the head of the table. My seat. He was wearing a fresh navy suit that Vanguard Capital's lawyers had likely bought for him this morning along with his freedom. He looked rested. He looked confident. He looked like a man who had gotten away with murder. Sitting to his right in the chair, usually reserved for the chief financial officer, was Ashley. She was wearing a gray pencil skirt that was too tight and a pair of glasses she did not need. She was playing the role of the efficient corporate secretary, pouring water into crystal glasses and smirking at the shareholders. She looked like a child playing dress-up in her mother's closet. "Gentleman," Tyson said, his voice projecting confidence. "I know the last 24 hours have been chaotic. The media circus regarding my wife is unfortunate. It is a tragedy, really. Brianna was a lovely woman once, but as you can see from the police reports, she has become a danger to herself and to this company." He paused, letting the words sink in. He walked around the table, making eye contact with the investors. "The kidnapping of my assistant was the final straw," Tyson continued. "It shows a level of instability that we cannot ignore. We cannot have a person like that attached to the Apex brand. The market hates uncertainty, and right now Brianna is chaos incarnate." Marcus Sterling sat at the far end of the table, rubbing his temples. He looked exhausted. He had been fielding calls from the SEC all morning. "So, what are you proposing, Tyson?" Marcus asked, his voice heavy. "I am proposing a clean break," Tyson said. He gestured to Ashley, who scrambled to hand out a stack of blue folders to the board members. She dropped one and giggled nervously before picking it up. The board members looked at her with thinly veiled contempt. "Inside these folders you will find the emergency resolution," Tyson explained. "It is a two-part motion. First, we move to immediately terminate Brianna Carter from her position as honorary advisor and strip her of all ceremonial titles. We invoke the morality clause in the company charter. Her criminal behavior is a breach of contract. He was firing me. He was firing me from the fake title he had given me 5 years ago so he could feel like the big man. He was firing the woman who wrote the code that paid for the suit he was wearing." And second, Tyson said, his voice rising with excitement, "Once the company is under stable leadership, which is to say, my leadership, we move to immediately accept the acquisition offer from Vanguard Capital. $200 million, cash. We sign the deal today. We stabilize the stock, and we move forward." The board members opened the folders. I could hear the rustle of paper. I could hear the greed in the silence. $200 million was a lot of money. It was enough money to make them forget about a missing wife and a poisoned assistant. It was enough money to wash away the sins of the morning. Tyson smiled. He saw them nodding. He saw the avarice in their eyes. He thought he had won. "Do I have a second for the motion?" Tyson asked, looking around the room like a king surveying his court. "I second the motion," a balding man on the left said, closing his folder. "Let us get this over with." Tyson beamed. "Excellent. All in favor of terminating Brianna Carter and authorizing the sale say aye." He opened his mouth to call the vote. He was seconds away from stealing my legacy, seconds away from erasing me. I pushed the door handle down. The heavy mahogany doors did not just open. They were thrown open with a force that made the hinges groan. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. I stepped into the room. I was not wearing the blue scrubs anymore. I was not wearing the stained dress from the police station. I was wearing white, a pristine, tailored white suit that hugged my pregnancy curves like armor. I wore it like a declaration of war. In a room full of men in dark gray and navy, I was a beacon of blinding light. I walked into that room not as a victim, but as the funeral director coming to bury the past. The silence was absolute. You could hear a pin drop on the thick carpet. Tyson froze. His hand was still raised in the air to call the vote. His mouth hung open. The color drained from his face so fast it looked like his blood had simply evaporated. He looked at me, and then he looked behind me expecting to see the police, expecting to see handcuffs. But there were no police, just me, and Howard Jameson walking 2 steps behind me carrying a briefcase that looked like it contained the nuclear codes. Ashley dropped the pitcher of water she was holding. It shattered on the marble floor, sending glass and ice skittering across the room. The sound broke the trance. Security Tyson screamed, his voice cracking. "Get security up here! She is trespassing! She is a fugitive!" I did not stop walking. I walked straight toward the head of the table. My heels clicked against the floor, a rhythmic countdown to his destruction. "Sit down, Tyson," I said. My voice was not loud. I did not scream. I spoke with the quiet, terrifying authority of a mother scolding a petulant child. He stammered, backing away from me. You are supposed to be in jail. The news said you were a kidnapper." "The news says a lot of things," I replied, reaching the table. I looked at the board members. I looked at Marcus Sterling, who was staring at me with a mixture of shock and hope. "Gentlemen," I said, resting my hands on the black marble. "I apologize for the interruption, but I believe there has been a misunderstanding regarding the agenda of this meeting." Ashley stood up from her chair, her face red with anger and fear. "Get out!" she shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You are fired, Brianna. Did you not hear him? The board just voted. You are a nobody. You are just the crazy ex-wife. Get out before I call the cops myself." I turned my head slowly to look at her. I looked at the cheap suit. I looked at the fear in her eyes. "Ashley," I said softly, "you are sitting in the CFO's chair. That seat requires a master's degree in finance and 10 years of experience. You have a gambling addiction and a leased handbag. Please remove yourself from the table before you embarrass yourself further." Ashley gasped, looking to Tyson for help. But Tyson was paralyzed. He was staring at the door, waiting for the security guards that were never coming. "I do not know how you got past the lobby," Tyson hissed, finding his voice. "But it does not matter. You have no power here, Brianna. I am the acting CEO, and I am triggering the sale." He grabbed the pen from the table and slammed it down on the Vanguard contract. "I am signing it," he yelled. "It is over." I watched him sign. I watched the ink flow onto the paper. I watched him sign his name with a flourish, thinking that his signature meant something. I waited until he was finished. I waited until he looked up with a triumphant smirk. "Are you done?" I asked. "I am done," Tyson said, panting slightly. "The company is sold. You lost Brianna. Go home." I smiled. It was a cold, sharp smile that did not reach my eyes. "Howard," I said, "please show the board why Mr. Carter's signature is currently worth less than the paper it is written on." Howard stepped forward. He placed his briefcase on the table and opened it. He did not take out paper. He took out a laptop. He connected it to the main projector system. The 60-inch screen at the front of the room flickered to life. Tyson laughed nervously. "What is this? A slideshow? You want to show us pictures of the baby?" "Nobody cares, Brianna." I pressed a key on the laptop. The screen did not show pictures. It showed a document. A PDF scan of the original Articles of Incorporation for Apex Solutions dated 5 years ago. "Gentlemen," I said, addressing the board, "when my husband presented himself to you as the founder of this company, he told you a very compelling story. He told you he wrote the code in our garage. He told you he designed the architecture." I walked around the table, slowly circling Tyson like a shark. But Tyson does not know how to code. Tyson cannot write a line of Python to save his life. Tyson is a salesman, and a very good one. He sold you a lie. I pointed to the screen. "Zoom in on Clause 12, Howard." The screen zoomed in. Clause 12, ownership of intellectual property. All source code algorithms and proprietary technology are the sole property of the Brianna Washington Trust. The individual known as Tyson Carter is appointed as the public-facing executive officer, but holds 0% equity in the underlying technology. The room erupted. "What is this?" the balding board member shouted, standing up. "Is this true?" Tyson turned purple. "That is a forgery," he screamed. "That is fake. She typed that up this morning. I own this company. I am the founder." I pressed another key. The screen changed. It showed a video feed. A live video feed from the server room in the basement. The server racks were flashing red. Tyson looked at the screen. He looked confused. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "I am doing what any owner does when there is an intruder in the house. I said. I am changing the locks. I typed a command into the laptop. Execute Protocol 0. On the screen, the lights on the server racks turned from red to black. One by one, the system shut down. The lights in the boardroom flickered. The projectors hummed and died. The smart glass walls turned opaque. In the silence of the room, my voice rang out clear and cold. I just activated the kill switch, Tyson. The source code for Apex Solutions has just been wiped from the local servers and encrypted into a cloud drive that only I can access. I turned to the board members who were now looking at their phones in panic, realizing their email was down, their apps were dead, and their investment was vanishing before their eyes. As of this moment, Apex Solutions is nothing but a building full of expensive furniture, I said. The product is gone, the code is gone, and the company you just tried to sell to Vanguard Capital does not exist. I looked at Tyson. He was holding the contract he had just signed. His hands were shaking so hard the paper was rattling. You cannot sell what you do not own, husband. Tyson looked at me. His eyes were wide with terror. The arrogance was gone. The mask had shattered. He looked at the contract, then at the blank screen, then at me. You destroyed it, he whispered. You destroyed everything. No, Tyson, I said, stepping closer until I was inches from his face. I didn't destroy it. I just took it back. I turned to Ashley, who was cowering in her chair. And now that we have cleared up the ownership issue, I said, I think it is time we talked about the other thing on the agenda. What other thing? Ashley squeaked. The murder, I said. And as I said the word, the doors to the boardroom opened again. But this time it wasn't a lawyer who walked in. It was Detective Miller. And behind him, 2 officers pushing a wheelchair. And sitting in that wheelchair, pale but alive with eyes burning like coals, was Jessica. Tyson made a sound that wasn't human. It was the sound of a trapped animal, realizing the cage door had just slammed shut. He looked at Jessica. He looked at me. And he realized that his nightmare had just begun. You are staring at a ghost, Tyson, I said, my voice cutting through the panic in the room. You are looking at Jessica like she is a problem you can solve, like she is just another mess you can clean up with a bottle of bleach and a lie. But you are missing the bigger picture. Jessica is not your problem. The police waiting in the lobby are not your problem. I took a step closer to the head of the table where Tyson stood trembling. I placed my hand on the leather chair, the CEO chair, the chair he had warmed for 5 years but never truly earned. Your problem is that you are trying to sell something that does not belong to you. Tyson looked at me, his eyes darting frantically between Jessica in the wheelchair and the contract on the table. I signed it. He stammered, his voice rising to a shriek. The ink is dry, Brianna. I signed the sale agreement. I am the CEO. My name is on the door. My name is on the patent filings. You cannot stop this. Vanguard Capital owns Apex now. I laughed. It was a genuine laugh. The kind of laugh you let out when a child threatens to hold their breath until they get a pony. You really don't read the paperwork, do you, Tyson? I asked. You just sign where the lawyers tell you to sign. You just look for the line that says, pay to the order of Tyson Carter. I nodded at Howard. Show him, Howard. Show him what he actually is. Howard tapped a key on his laptop. The massive screen behind me changed. The video feed of the server room vanished. In its place was a high-resolution scan of a legal document. It was yellowed with age. It was dated 5 years ago, 2 weeks before our wedding. Tyson squinted at the screen. The board members leaned forward. Even Ashley stopped hyperventilating long enough to look. This is the original employment agreement, Tyson, I said, pointing to the screen. Read Clause 1. Tyson read it. His lips moved silently. Position public liaison and brand ambassador. That is your job title, Tyson. Not founder, not owner, not architect. Public liaison. You were hired to shake hands. You were hired to smile for magazines. You were hired to look the part, because I knew that the tech world was not ready to hand a $100 million check to a black woman in her 20s. I needed a face. So I hired you. Tyson shook his head violently. No. I have shares. I have 60% of the voting stock. I have the certificates. Howard clicked the mouse again. A new document appeared, the Brianna Future Trust. Actually, Howard said, his deep voice filling the room. "You hold those shares in trust, Mr. Carter. You are a custodian, a glorified babysitter for the stock. And if you look at the fine print in the trustee agreement which you signed without reading because you were too busy looking at luxury cars, you will see the stipulation regarding executive power." I walked over to the screen and traced the line with my finger. "All executive decisions regarding the sale, transfer, or liquidation of Apex assets require a countersignature from the grantor." I turned back to Tyson. "I am the grantor, Tyson. Every check you signed, every contract you approved, every deal you made for the last 5 years. I countersigned them digitally. Every night while you were sleeping or playing video games, I was logging into the secure admin portal and approving your work. I let you play boss. I let you feel powerful, but you never had the power to buy a stapler without my permission, let alone sell the entire company." The board members were in an uproar. Marcus Sterling stood up, his face red. "Are you telling us that this man has no authority?" Marcus shouted, pointing at Tyson. "That we have been negotiating with a figurehead." "I am telling you that you have been negotiating with an employee," I corrected him. "And a bad employee at that. One who is about to be terminated for cause." I looked at the Vanguard contract on the table. The one Tyson had signed with such arrogance. "That signature is void," I said. "It is worthless. You just sold Vanguard Capital a bridge to nowhere." Tyson collapsed into his chair. He looked small. He looked like the fraud he had always been. The illusion was gone. He wasn't the genius tech mogul. He was just a man in a suit who didn't read the fine print. But I wasn't done. I turned my attention to the side of the room where Ashley was standing. She was clutching her pearl necklace, looking like she wanted to melt into the carpet. Ashley thought she was safe. She thought this was just a corporate dispute. She thought that even if Tyson went down, she still had her cut. She still had the lifestyle. "Ashley," I said, my voice deceptively sweet. She jumped. "What?" she squeaked. "This has nothing to do with me. I just work here." "You don't work here," I reminded her. "You are just a guest." "But I am curious. How did you plan to pay off that $500,000 gambling debt without the insurance money from my death?" Ashley's eyes went wide. She looked at the board members who were staring at her with disgust. Tyson said he would take care of it," she stammered. "He gave me the company credit card. The black card. He said I could use it for emergencies." "Ah, yes," I said. "The famous black card. The one you used to buy your designer wardrobe. The one you used to lease your condo. The one you used to buy the plane tickets for your little getaway to the Caymans." I nodded at Howard. "One last slide, Howard." The screen changed again. This time it showed a credit card statement. A very long, very red statement. But the logo at the top wasn't Apex Solutions. It was First National Bank of Atlanta. And the name on the account wasn't Tyson Carter. It was Ashley Carter. Ashley stared at the screen. She squinted. She took a step closer. "Wait," she whispered. "Why is my name on the header?" Tyson said it was a corporate account. He said I was an authorized user. I walked over to her. I stood close enough to smell the fear radiating off her. "Tyson lied to you, Ashley," I said softly. "Just like he lied to everyone else. He couldn't add you to the corporate account because he didn't have the authority. Remember, I have to countersign everything, and I certainly never signed off on a credit card for my sister-in-law to buy Birkin bags." Ashley started to shake. "Then what is this card?" she asked, her voice trembling. I looked at Tyson, who was burying his face in his hands. "Tell her, Tyson. Tell your sister what you did." Tyson didn't answer. He couldn't. "I will tell her," I said. "He opened a personal line of credit in your name, Ashley. He used your social security number. He forged your signature on the application. He told you it was a company perk, but really he was just maxing out a high-interest overdraft account in your name." I pointed to the bottom of the statement on the screen. Total balance. Due $412,000. Interest rate, 24%. Ashley let out a sound that was half scream, half sob. "No," she wailed. "No. That is impossible. I don't have that kind of money. I will be ruined." "You are already ruined," I said coldly. "You are $500,000 in debt to the bank. You owe another $500,000 to a loan shark. And the man you trusted to save you just admitted he doesn't own the company he promised to sell." Ashley turned on Tyson. She flew at him, her nails aiming for his face. "You lied to me," she screamed, hitting him on the shoulder. "You told me we were rich. You told me I could spend whatever I wanted. You destroyed me." Tyson pushed her away weakly. "Calm down, Ashley," he mumbled. "Calm down," she shrieked. "I am going to jail Tyson. I am going to lose everything." I watched them turn on each other. The rats were eating the rats. It was poetic. I walked back to the head of the table. I looked at the board members. I looked at Marcus Sterling. "Gentlemen," I said, my voice calm and professional, "I apologize for the domestic disturbance. As you can see, the current management is unfit to lead." Marcus Sterling stood up. He buttoned his jacket. He looked at Tyson and Ashley with pure disdain. Then he looked at me with respect. "I move to accept the resignation of Tyson Carter, effective immediately," Marcus said. "And I move to reinstate Brianna Carter as CEO with full executive powers." "I second the motion," the balding man shouted. "All in favor?" Marcus asked. Every hand in the room went up. "It is unanimous," Marcus said. He turned to the security guards who had finally arrived at the door. "Please escort Mr. Carter and his sister out of the building," Marcus ordered, "and call the police. I believe there are charges of fraud and embezzlement to be filed." I stood there in my white suit watching the security guards grab Tyson by the arms. He didn't fight. He looked broken. He looked at me one last time as they dragged him toward the door. "Brianna," he whispered, "please. The baby." I placed a hand on my stomach. "The baby is fine, Tyson," I said. "She is going to be raised by a CEO, not a con artist." And as they dragged him out past the wheelchair where Jessica sat watching with a grim smile on her face, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The company was mine. The future was mine. But I wasn't done yet. Tyson was going to jail. But I had one more message to deliver, a message to the world that had doubted me. I turned to Howard. "Turn the cameras back on," I said. "The press is waiting outside," Howard said, smiling. "Let them in," I said. "I have an announcement to make. And this time, I am going to control the narrative." The silence in the boardroom was shattered by the heavy metallic sound of handcuffs being unclipped from a utility belt. Detective Miller did not smile. He did not gloat. He walked toward Tyson with the heavy, deliberate steps of a man who had been waiting all morning to do his job. Behind him, 4 uniformed officers fanned out, blocking the exits. The glass walls of the conference room, which were meant to showcase power, now looked like the walls of a fishbowl trapping 2 desperate bottom feeders. "Tyson Carter, you are under arrest," Miller said, his voice booming off the glass. Tyson stumbled back, knocking over his leather chair. It crashed to the floor with a loud thud. He held his hands up, palms out, as if he could physically push the words away. "No," he stammered. "You cannot arrest me here. This is a private meeting. I have lawyers. I have investors. You have the right to remain silent." Miller continued, ignoring him completely. He grabbed Tyson's wrist and twisted it behind his back. The snap of the handcuffs locking into place echoed through the room like a gavel strike. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. What am I being charged with?" Tyson screamed, struggling against the detective's grip. "I did nothing wrong. I signed a contract. That is a civil matter. You cannot arrest me for a business deal." Miller spun him around, forcing him to look at the stunned board members. "You are not being arrested for a business deal, Mr. Carter. You are being arrested for the attempted murder of Jessica Miles. Count 1, solicitation of murder. Count 2. Tyson's face went white. He looked at Jessica, who was still sitting in her wheelchair, watching him with cold, dead eyes. "She is fine," he yelled, desperate to find a loophole. "Look at her. She is alive. It was just a smoothie. It was a mistake." Miller tightened his grip. "We are also charging you with federal wire fraud and the embezzlement of $4 million from the Apex Solutions pension fund," Miller added. "We have the bank records, we have the audio confession, and we have the digital trail you left when you tried to sell a company you do not own." Tyson looked at me. His eyes were wild, filled with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. "You did this," he spat at me. "You set me up. You let me think I was in charge. You let me spend that money. You entrapped me." I stood perfectly still, my hand resting on my stomach. "I gave you a job, Tyson," I said calmly. "You chose to steal. I gave you a home. You chose to poison. Nobody forced you to empty the pension fund to buy crypto. Nobody forced you to put arsenic in my breakfast. You did that all by yourself. While Tyson was still screaming excuses, two officers moved toward Ashley. She had backed herself into a corner near the window, clutching her pearl necklace so tight I thought it would snap. "Don't touch me!" she shrieked as the officer reached for her arm. "I am not involved. I didn't poison anyone. I was just sitting here. I am a victim too. He lied to me about the credit card." The officer didn't pause. He spun her around and cuffed her hands behind her back. "Ashley Carter, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and grand larceny," the officer said, reciting the charges without emotion. "We have evidence that you were aware of the poisoning plot and that you knowingly participated in defrauding First National Bank of Atlanta for over $400,000. "No," Ashley wailed. Her legs gave out and the officer had to hold her up. "I didn't know about the poison. I just wanted him to pay off my debts. I have a gambling problem. I need help. I don't belong in jail. Look at me. I am a good person." I looked at her, really looked at her. She was the woman who had laughed at my old car. She was the woman who had tried to sell my handbags while I was allegedly in a coma. "You are not a good person, Ashley," I said softly. "You are just a broke person who thought she could get away with murder because she had the right last name." "Take them away," Miller ordered. The officers began to drag them toward the door, the perp walk, the most humiliating moment of their lives. Tyson fought them every step of the way. He was not going down with dignity. He was kicking and screaming, behaving exactly like the entitled child he was. "This is racism," he shouted, his voice cracking. "You are arresting me because I am a black man in power. You are trying to bring me down. This is a conspiracy. The system is rigged." I watched the board members shake their heads in disgust. Marcus Sterling looked at me and mouthed the word sorry. It wasn't the system, Tyson, I called out to him as he reached the door. It was the greed. Tyson stopped struggling for a second. He looked back at me over his shoulder. His eyes were filled with tears, but they were tears of self-pity, not remorse. "I made you," he hissed. "You were nothing before me. You were just a coder in a dark room. I gave you a face. I gave you a brand. You owe me, Brianna. You owe me everything." I walked over to him. I stood inches from his face. I could smell the expensive cologne masking the scent of his fear. "You were a suit, Tyson," I whispered. "An empty suit. And now you are just a number." I nodded to Miller. "Get him out of my building." The officer shoved him through the doors. I could hear his screams echoing down the hallway all the way to the elevator. "She tricked me. It is not fair. I am the CEO." Then the elevator doors dinged, and the screaming stopped. The room fell silent. The only sound was the soft sobbing of Ashley as she was led out behind him, her high heels dragging on the carpet she had once thought she owned. I turned back to the table. The contract lay there unsigned by me. The screen behind me was black. The server room was secure. Jessica wheeled herself over to me. She looked exhausted, but for the first time she looked free. "Is it over?" she asked quietly. I looked at the empty doorway where my husband and his sister had just vanished from my life forever. "Yes," I said, feeling the baby kick again. "It is over." I looked at the board members. "Now, gentlemen," I said, smoothing out my white suit, "I believe we have a company to rebuild. Shall we get to work? The nursery in my new penthouse apartment smells of lavender and fresh linen. It is a peaceful scent, a scent that is a world away from the sterile smell of the hospital and the metallic smell of the police precinct. I stand by the floor-to-ceiling window, holding a bundle wrapped in soft pink cotton. Her name is Maya. She has my eyes and my nose, but thankfully she has none of her father's spirit. She is calm. She is observant. She is the heir to the Apex Empire, and she arrived right on schedule, just like her mother. It has been 6 months since I walked into that boardroom in my white suit and dismantled the lie that was Tyson Carter. 6 months of legal battles, media storms, and restructuring. But today, as I look out at the Atlanta skyline, watching the autumn leaves turn gold in Piedmont Park, I finally feel the silence settling in. The silence of victory. Last week, I sat in the back row of the Fulton County Superior Court. I did not have to be there. Howard told me I could stay home. He said I didn't need to see it. But I wanted to. I needed to see the final period being put at the end of the sentence. Tyson stood before the judge, wearing an orange jumpsuit that clashed horribly with his skin tone. He had lost weight. His hair, usually perfectly faded, was grown out and patchy. The swagger was gone. The arrogance had been stripped away by 6 months in county jail, denied bail because he was a flight risk. The trial had been a circus. Tyson's lawyers tried everything. They tried to plead insanity. They tried to claim the recording was doctored. They tried to claim Jessica was a scorned lover who framed him. But the evidence was a mountain they could not climb. The judge, a stern woman who had no patience for men who poison women, looked at Tyson over her glasses. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice echoing in the packed courtroom, "you had everything. You had a brilliant wife. You had a position of influence. You had wealth. And yet your greed was a bottomless pit. You poisoned a young woman who trusted you. You defrauded a pension fund meant for hard-working employees. And you plotted to murder your own unborn child for an insurance payout." Tyson tried to speak. He tried to interrupt, but his microphone was cut. "I sentence you to 25 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole," the judge said, slamming her gavel. 25 years. Tyson screamed. It was a raw, guttural sound that made the jurors flinch. He turned around looking for someone, anyone, to save him. He looked for his high-powered friends, but they had abandoned him the moment the handcuffs clicked. He looked for the media, but they were just there to document his fall. Then he saw me. I was sitting in the back wearing the same white suit I wore the day I took my company back. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just watched him. "Brianna," he screamed as the bailiffs dragged him away. "Brianna, I am sorry. I can fix this. Just call Howard. Please, I don't belong here. I am a CEO. The heavy oak doors slammed shut behind him, cutting off his pleas. He was gone. He was no longer a husband or a business partner. He was inmate number 89402. He would be 57 years old when he walked out of that cell. He would miss Maya's first steps. He would miss her graduation. He would miss everything, and he deserved to miss it. But Tyson wasn't the only one who faced the music. Yesterday, on my way home from the office, I asked my driver to take a detour. We drove out to the suburbs, past the fancy gated communities, and into a strip mall near the highway. I wanted a coffee, but not just any coffee. I walked into a diner called the Rusty Spoon. It was a greasy spoon joint that smelled of bacon grease and despair. I sat in a booth near the back and waited. A waitress walked over. She was wearing a stained yellow uniform and comfortable shoes. Her hair was frizzy, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked 10 years older than the last time I saw her. "Welcome to the Rusty Spoon." "What can I get you?" she asked without looking up from her notepad. "Hello, Ashley," I said. The waitress froze. The pen dropped from her hand. She looked up slowly, her eyes widening in horror. Ashley Carter looked at me, the woman who had sneered at my clothes, the woman who had tried to sell my handbags to buy a Range Rover, the woman who had lectured me on class and dignity. "Brianna," she whispered, looking around nervously to see if her manager was watching. "What are you doing here? Are you here to gloat?" I looked at her apron. I looked at the dark circles under her eyes. "I heard the auction went well," I said, taking a sip of the water she had placed on the table. Ashley flinched. The bankruptcy court had seized everything: the condo, the car, the fake jewelry, even the clothes. First National Bank was ruthless when it came to recovering the $400,000 she had helped Tyson steal. She had avoided prison by pleading guilty to a lesser charge of fraud and agreeing to a restitution plan. She had to pay back every cent, which meant she would be serving pancakes and scrubbing tables for the rest of her life. "I lost everything," Ashley said, tears welling up in her eyes. "I am living in a studio apartment above a garage. I take the bus to work. Are you happy now?" I placed a $100 bill on the table. "I am not happy, Ashley," I said. "I am just balanced. You wanted the high life. You wanted to spend money you didn't earn. Now you are earning it. That is justice." I stood up to leave. "By the way," I said, "the coffee is cold. You might want to make a fresh pot if you want to keep this job." I walked out, leaving her staring at the money. It was probably more than she made in a week. I didn't feel pity. I felt closure. And then there was Jessica, the star witness, the woman who brought the house of cards down. She testified via video link from an undisclosed location. Her testimony was damning. She detailed every conversation, every promise, every lie Tyson had ever told her. She was the nail in his coffin. After the trial, Howard arranged for her to be relocated. She moved back to her hometown in Alabama. She changed her name. She went back to school to study nursing. She sent me a letter last week, no return address, just a note inside a card with a picture of a sunrise. "Thank you for saving my life," it read. "I am sorry I tried to steal yours." I put the letter in the shredder. I forgave her, but I didn't need to keep the memory. She was a chapter in a book I had finished reading. I looked down at Maya, who is now sleeping soundly in my arms. She is so heavy and warm. She is the physical manifestation of my survival. People asked me why I didn't sell the company after the scandal. They asked why I didn't take the buyout and disappear to an island. I looked at the apex tower visible from my window, ideally located in the center of the city. The lights are on. The servers are humming. The stock has rebounded and is trading at an all-time high. I didn't sell because I am not Tyson. I don't run when things get hard. I build. I kissed Maya's forehead. "We are going to be fine, baby girl," I whispered to her. The phone rang in the hallway. It was Marcus Sterling. We had a board meeting in an hour to discuss the expansion into Europe. I walked out of the nursery, closing the door softly behind me. I walked past the empty spot on the wall where Tyson's portrait used to hang. It had been replaced by a painting of a phoenix rising from the ashes. I straightened my white suit. I checked my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired, but I looked strong. The nightmare was over. The morning had come. I walked into the elevator ready to go to work. I was Brianna Carter, mother, survivor, CEO, and nobody was ever going to underestimate me again. I stand on the private terrace of the CEO suite on the 50th floor of the Apex Tower. The wind up here is strong. It whips my hair across my face and chills the skin on my arms, but I do not step back inside. I like the cold. It reminds me that I am alive. It reminds me that I am standing on solid ground. Below me, the city of Atlanta is waking up. The highway is a river of red taillights and white headlights. Thousands of people are rushing to jobs they hate, rushing to pay bills they cannot afford, rushing to please bosses who do not care about them. From up here, they look like ants. They look small. 6 months ago, I was down there. I was in the traffic. I was rushing to please a husband who was plotting my death. I was dimming my light to keep him comfortable. I was shrinking myself to fit into the box he had built for me, the box labeled supportive wife, the box labeled good woman. I take a sip of sparkling water and lean against the glass railing. My reflection stares back at me. The woman in the glass looks different now. Her eyes are harder. Her shoulders are straighter. She is not the woman who cooked dinner every night hoping for a compliment. She is the woman who just authorized a hostile takeover of a European competitor before breakfast. I think about Tyson sitting in his cell right now. I wonder if he is awake. I wonder if he is thinking about me. He used to tell me I was boring. He used to tell his friends that I had no fire. He said I was too quiet, too passive. He mistook my silence for submission. He mistook my patience for weakness. That was his fatal error. They always make that mistake. Men like Tyson. Men like the board members. They see a woman, especially a black woman, who listens more than she speaks, and they assume she is empty. They assume she is a sheep waiting to be led. They forgot the most important rule of the jungle. They thought I was a sheep because I was silent. They forgot that lions do not need to bark. A dog barks when it is scared. A dog barks when it wants attention. But a lion moves through the grass without making a sound. A lion watches. A lion calculates. And a lion only attacks when the kill is guaranteed. I was never a sheep. I was just hunting. I spent 5 years gathering data. I spent 5 years building the trap. I let him think he was the king because a king who feels safe is a king who gets careless. I let him sign the papers. I let him take the credit. I let him steal the money because I knew that when the time came, I would not just win the argument. I would own the board. I turn away from the city and look back into the office. Through the glass walls, I can see the nursery I had built in the corner. Maya is asleep in her crib. She is safe. She will never know the fear of poverty. She will never know the sting of being underestimated. She will grow up knowing that her mother built this empire with her own 2 hands and defended it with iron and fire. But this story is not just about me. It is not just about a company or a lawsuit or a cheating husband. It is about you. I know you are watching this. I know you are listening. Maybe you are sitting in your car right now. Maybe you are folding laundry. Maybe you are lying in bed next to a man who makes you feel small. Maybe you are the one paying the bills while he chases a dream that never comes true. Maybe you are the one shrinking yourself so his ego doesn't get bruised. Maybe you are the one forgiving the disrespect because you are afraid of being alone. I want you to listen to me very carefully. Stop. Stop setting yourself on fire to keep him warm. Stop building a castle for a man who treats you like a guest in your own home. Stop apologizing for your success. They will call you difficult. They will call you aggressive. They will call you an angry black woman. Let them. Let them call you whatever they want while you cash the checks. Let them talk while you sign the deeds. Let them gossip while you build your trust fund. Your value is not defined by how much you can endure. Your value is defined by what you create and what you protect. Tyson thought my value was my life insurance policy. He thought I was worth more dead than alive. He looked at me and saw a paycheck. But he failed to read the fine print. He failed to realize that I was the author of the contract. Do not be the victim in your own story. Be the editor. If the script isn't working, rewrite it. If the cast isn't respecting you, fire them. You have the power. You have always had the power. You just have to be willing to use it. You have to be willing to be the villain in their story so you can be the hero in yours. I walk back inside the office. The air conditioning is cool and crisp. My assistant, a young, bright woman named Sarah, looks up from her desk. She reminds me of myself 10 years ago, eager to please, eager to work. "Mrs. Carter, your 10 o'clock meeting is here," Sarah says. "Thank you, Sarah," I say. "Send them in." I walk to my desk, the black marble desk that used to intimidate me. Now it just feels like furniture. I sit down. I open my laptop. I see the stock price of Apex Solutions. It is up another 4 points this morning. I smile. Life is good. Freedom is good. But before I go, I have one last piece of advice for you. One tiny nugget of wisdom from a woman who learned it the hard way. Trust your intuition. It is the only superpower you have. If something feels off, it is off. If the numbers don't add up, check the ledger. If the late nights at the office seem suspicious, hire a private investigator. And most importantly, never let love blind you to your value. Love is beautiful, but it is not a retirement plan. Love is not a legal defense. Love is not a shield against arsenic. So watch your back, protect your heart, and protect your assets. And if one Sunday morning your husband suddenly becomes very attentive, if he walks into the kitchen with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes, if he hands you a glass of green juice that smells a little too sweet, like almonds or bitter almonds, do not drink it. Smile at him. Tell him he is the best husband in the world. Tell him you want to share this special moment with someone else. And hand that glass to his personal assistant. "My name is Brianna Carter. I won the game. And if you are listening to this, you can win too. Hit that like button if you are ready to stop being a sheep and start being a lion. Subscribe if you want to know how to build an empire on the ashes of your enemies. And remember, the best revenge isn't just surviving, it is thriving." Class dismissed. The most profound lesson from Brianna's journey is that true power does not need to announce itself. For years, Brianna allowed Tyson to play the role of the king, stepping back into the shadows to protect his fragile ego. She dimmed her own light to make him shine a mistake that many capable women make in the name of love and partnership. However, Tyson mistook her grace for weakness and her silence for ignorance. He forgot that the person who builds the castle knows exactly where the foundation is weak. The story serves as a stark reminder that financial agency and legal ownership are the ultimate shields against betrayal. Brianna survived not because she screamed louder, but because she owned the paper. She understood that titles like CEO are vanity, but equity and intellectual property are sanity. While Tyson was focused on the optics of success, the suits, the cars, the public image, Brianna was focused on the architecture of control. She teaches us that we must never outsource our security to someone else, no matter how much we love them. Trust is beautiful, but verification is essential. Furthermore, Brianna's transformation reveals that hitting rock bottom can be a firm foundation. When stripped of her home and her reputation, she didn't crumble. She calculated. She turned her pain into a strategy. She proves that being underestimated is actually a tactical advantage. When your enemies think you are a sheep, they become careless, and that is when you remind them that you are a lion. Ultimately, your value is not defined by how much you can endure in silence, but by what you are willing to build and protect. Hit that subscribe button if you are done shrinking yourself for others and are ready to start building your own empire today.